Sup, my fellas. Don't forget to leave feedback, and enjoy the story. The protagonist, a mysterious warrior, wandered the world like a ghost, carrying darkness within him, fighting unusual creatures, which the locals called monsters. Maren didn't fight alone, but he used his skills to help others level up. He was unusual because he couldn't eat normal food, but only liked to snack on the meat of slain monsters, boiling the pieces of flesh with noodles and sprinkling the finished dish with herbs. Whenever he began to eat, people looked at him with disdain, because they couldn't understand how anyone could eat monster meat. Despite his high level of skill, the protagonist was panicked inside. He didn't take off his helmet even when he went to bed. Maren lost everything, including his family, due to an incident with a terrible red dragon. He looks strong, but everything inside him is broken. Our protagonist carries only faint fragments of his past. However, Maren wandered across the land to find a reason to live. During another foray, the warrior found himself in a small village in the south. The villagers were outraged that the carriages no longer ran on schedule. The man explained that this was all because of a monster rampaging along the road. After traveling this route, people returned in terrible condition. The merchant began to worry that he would not be able to deliver the order to his nobleman client on time due to the monster's attack. Maren also wanted to leave, but was forbidden. The aristocrat's suppliers noticed the protagonist and discussed his strength. The men were hesitant, but wanted to fulfill the order quickly. They decided to invite a helmeted warrior with them, who would definitely be able to protect them from the monster on their journey, since they simply had no other options. The friendly merchant explains that carriages need escorts to depart town and asks where Maren wants to go. He answers he is heading east to Adurama. Hearing the destination matches their route, the merchant offers to waive Maren's fare if he escorts their group, also promising to provide meals. Maren confirms that other carriages will be grounded for a while due to the danger, and the merchant admits they are rushing to meet a delivery deadline. Noting they are both in a hurry, Maren suggests cooperating and seems inclined to accept. He agrees to accompany them, which delights the merchant, who calls it a wise decision. The merchant asks him to wait, while they recruit more escorts before noon, and Maren chooses to sit and rest in the wagon. As they ride, the merchant Manhwa introduces himself and prompts Maren for his own name. Maren, lounging in the wagon, simply gives his name as Maren Gras. Watching him rest, the merchants whisper that he seems odd and wonder if he might be a deserter, but decide anyone who can fight monsters is acceptable. Maren, half dozing, tells them to hire many mercenaries if they are that worried, then trails off. As he drifts to sleep, his visor darkens and he begins to dream. In the nightmare he gasps awake in memory, eyes wide with terror. He remembers a bloody battlefield, staring at a severed, blood-soaked hand and questioning how things ended up that way. The dream shows a once glorious hero sitting dead and mutilated against a tree, his corpse discovered by a horrified younger Maren. Maren turns in panic, sensing a threat approaching from behind. The scene reveals him standing by the hero's body deep in a forest webbed with ominous strands, as something closes in. A monstrous spider-like creature emerges, looming behind the terrified young Maren. Overlaid with spiderwebs, he thinks in despair that he does not want to die. Desperate, he resolves that he must survive and return alive. Bleeding and staggering, he insists he has to reach Adumara, calling out weakly to someone named Ran. The dream is broken when Muhammad shakes him awake in the wagon, apologizing for disturbing him. Maren says it is fine and asks what is needed as Muhammad explains they were just sharing travel plans. Inside the wagon, the escorts and merchants discuss their destinations and ask Maren which part of Adurama he is heading to. Maren answers that he is going to St. Ree's nursery to see his family after a long absence, prompting surprise that Adurama even has such a nursery. One escort notes Maren looks strong and curiously asks what level he is. He explains that knowing each other's levels helps cooperation and shows his own status screen, describing level as the heart's window for measuring strength. Proudly, he announces he is level 23 and suggests Maren could reach that with effort. Maren opens his own glowing status window and quietly reads that his level is extremely high. Before that revelation is voiced, the wagon suddenly jolts and everyone is thrown as the driver panics. The driver shouts that the monster is in sight, yanking the reins in fear. Ahead on the road, something charges through a cloud of dust, smashing the ground apart. The red boar finally appears, barreling toward them as someone yells its name. The boar roars ferociously, bearing rows of monstrous fangs. The escorts scramble. The leader orders them to prepare for combat and lure the beast away from the wagons. Maren, however, tells him it is too late to divert it now and confirms that this is indeed the red boar. Calmly assessing the threat, he thinks the beast looks odd but is essentially just a red boar. Using his appraisal ability, he checks its stats and sees that the red boar is a level 62 monster with very high attack and defense. Maren notes its level and decides it is a suitable opponent to test his own strength against. Drawing his sword, he steps forward alone to meet the charging creature. As the other fighter runs off to help, Maren boldly advances straight toward the boar. The escort leader yells at Maren, asking if he has a death wish for confronting it head-on. The red boar lunges at Maren with overwhelming size and speed. Their faces flash past each other as they cross in a decisive instant. An enormous spray of blood erupts as Maren's single strike cleaves the charging boar. The scene widens to show Maren landing behind the neatly bisected corpse, crimson raining down. Blood falls around Marin as he stands with sword lowered, the wagon and onlookers visible in the distance. He looks at himself, shocked, wondering aloud what just happened. The caravan erupts into cheers as they realize the red boar has been killed in one stroke. Marin, still stunned, asks himself if he really did that. He reflects that even considering the difference in levels, he never imagined a single cut could cause such destruction. The burly escort enthusiastically congratulates him for cutting the red boar in half with one hit. Others speculate in awe about who or what he is, wondering if he might be a non-human like an elf or beast man, while Marin awkwardly starts to respond. The group gathers around, clearly impressed yet uncertain how to regard this mysterious warrior. The burly man laughs heartily and declares that after such a feat, they ought to celebrate with a big meal. He invites everyone to eat before resuming the journey as Marin quietly looks at his own powerful hands. That evening the caravan makes camp and begins preparing dinner by the wagons. Around the fire, some escorts gossip that it is strange Marin always hides his face, joking his sword might be some secret treasure. Nearby, the girl and Mahamu remark that his gear is cheap but he might possess a special skill, then decide to go ask him directly. She calls out for Mr. Marin as everyone mills about the camp preparing food. Realizing he has vanished from sight, they wonder where he slipped off to. They react in shock as they notice him returning with something unexpected. Marin trudges back dragging the massive red boar carcass, explaining he brought it back for their meal, horrifying the others. The girl yells that he is crazy while Marin simply argues that fresh meat would be good to have. She orders him to get rid of it immediately, unwilling to eat monster flesh. Later, Marin is served a normal bowl of creamy soup instead. One escort scolds that no matter how hungry Marin gets, he cannot bring monster corpses to dinner because it ruins everyone's appetite. Marin lifts his visor slightly as he prepares to taste the soup. He samples it carefully from his spoon. The simple soup's taste shocks him so much that he clutches his helmet in surprise. The girl happily praises the soft potatoes and warmth of the soup, while Marin privately wonders if this bland dish is really considered delicious here. She glares and reminds him that for outdoor rations this is more than good enough, asking if he expected gourmet steak. Seeing his odd reaction, she suspects he truly intended to eat the red boar earlier. She continues lecturing him that eating such disgusting, possibly poisonous monster meat is reckless. Pointing to the boar's body, she explains proper practice is to harvest only materials and then burn the rest, saying starvation would be better than eating it. She notes that since Marin is also heading to Adumara, he should eat regular food for the long journey even if it does not suit his tastes. Other escorts struggle to set the boar corpse on fire and call the girl over to help ignite it. They complain the fat corpse refuses to catch, so she approaches with magic. She tells them to stand back and offers to light it properly. Watching this, Marin wonders why they are asking an archer to handle fire magic. The girl casually casts a fire spell, conjuring flames in her hand. She unleashes the spell, engulfing the red boar's remains in magical fire. Marin looks on, startled by her unexpected magic prowess. The other escort marvels at how convenient magic is, deciding he should learn it too, and the girl assures him that basic spells are easy and useful. She readies her hands again, pleased with her spellcasting. Marin approaches and asks if she is from the magic tower, surprising her. She insists she is just an archer even though she used magic, while Marin points out that most mages originate from the magic tower. She shrugs that even non-mages can handle such simple magic, though mastering original magic properly would still take years. She teases Marin for sounding old-fashioned, saying basic magic is standard for modern adventurers and asking if he has been living in isolation. Later she leads him through the bushes, telling him to look at something ahead. From a hill they gaze at the bright, magically lit city of Adurama shining in the night. Marin stares in stunned silence at the sight. He realizes the city's streetlights and many other illuminations are all powered by magic stones rather than ordinary lamps, which he confirms are common in cities now. She explains that in this era even children's toys run on magic, marveling at how fast times have changed. Marin stands alone on the hill, quietly taking in how much the world has advanced. He looks up at the starry sky, contemplative and perhaps a bit lost. Back at camp, the escorts remark that the meat smells good and wish it were normal pork instead of monster meat, half joking about offering Marin a slice to try. Around a campfire, men joke about celebrating their successful job later with a big meat feast and cold beer. A silent armored warrior stands before blazing flames, watching. In Eastern Adrama, merchants thank the armored man for helping them reach town early by catching a dangerous red boar. The merchants shake his hand and say they are deeply grateful, admitting they do not know what would have happened without Mr. Marin. Marin modestly thanks them in return, while clearly hungry. Guards gossip, surprised that Marin seemingly went the entire escort mission without eating once. One recalls he tried to feed Marin but anything solid made him vomit so he only drank water, wondering if it is some illness. They speculate this is also why he never removes his helmet, and worry whether his condition might be contagious. Marin stands expressionless in close-up, his face fully hidden by the helmet. The caravan leader offers Marin an extra personal reward for his help, even though payment was not originally agreed upon. Insisting it is only right to thank him, the leader bids Marin farewell and hopes to meet again someday. Marin opens the reward pouch to find it filled with potatoes. He stares down at the contents silently, unsure what to do with them. He leaves the potatoes behind on the street as he walks away, to the surprise of a nearby beggar. Marin reflects that after many events he has finally returned to his homeland, Eastern Adrama. As he walks through the city, he feels the townscape has changed and become unfamiliar. Spotting a busy bakery he remembers from before, he notes that shop is still thriving as always. Using that landmark, he heads toward a corner where he believes a familiar place should be. Filled with nostalgia for home, he anticipates finding that place again. He recalls that the St. Rias nursery where he grew up ought to be located there. Instead of the nursery, he finds a brightly decorated toy store standing on the spot. Confused, he wonders whether he misremembered the route, or if a new toy shop inexplicably replaced the nursery. The shopkeeper steps out and asks if Marin is looking for something. Marin anxiously asks the shopkeeper what happened to the St. Rias nursery that used to stand here. The second-generation owner says he has never heard of any such nursery. Marin reacts in disbelief to the idea of a second-generation owner, and repeats that the nursery definitely was in this location, but the man still knows nothing. An old man nearby overhears and asks if Marin is searching for the St. Rias nursery, prompting Marin to eagerly confirm. The elder explains he never saw it himself but heard long ago that such a place once existed. Marin, alarmed, asks what the man means by long ago, and the elder starts recalling what he heard. The elder says his memory is that the nursery burned down, shocking Marin. Marin's mind fills with the image of a dragon's fiery eye. He envisions a massive dragon attack engulfing the city in flames, realizing the nursery perished in that raid. The narrative shifts to his previous life, showing him drowning in dark water and remarking on his ordinary, unremarkable existence. As he sinks, he describes his former life as dull and dreamless, and notes that in this final empty moment a particular memory surfaces. He remembers the warmth of eating around a dining table with the family that died before him, and identifies that as the end of his first life. A wooden fish mobile appears as he slowly becomes aware of his surroundings again. He realizes he drowned, yet now sees a bright ceiling and hanging mobile instead of darkness. Children notice he has awoken in a crib beneath the mobile and call out. The excited boys shout for the sister, announcing that the baby has woken up. From the baby's perspective, he wonders what is happening, remembering he died in an accident. A nun approaches, calmly scolding the boys not to shout and frighten the just awakened baby. She lifts the baby up, urging the others to look. Smiling warmly, the nun asks if he slept well and welcomes him to St. Rias nursery. She tells the baby that from today he is part of their family. Marin narrates that this welcome at the nursery is his first memory in this new world, and the return of a familial warmth he thought lost forever. In the present, he places a pouch of coins on a table, stating it is his monthly donation. The elderly nun coughs and protests that he need not donate, but he insists he just wants the children to have something tasty. She worries that he only returned a few days ago and is already preparing to depart again, asking if he is overworking himself, while he dismisses it as nothing. She admits she worries because he rarely comes back, but he says this time is only a simple job to clear some goblins in the south. Though uneasy, she accepts his assurance. As he heads out, she asks him to make a promise before leaving. She tells him not to be gone too long and promises to bake his favorite berry pie for his return. Marin agrees and promises he will come back. Back at the present cemetery, a large memorial tree stands where the nursery once was, and a nun asks if the grave beneath it belongs to the person he was looking for. She explains that while most of the city has been rebuilt since the dragon's attack, no one at the nursery survived and the current temple now serves in its place. She notes no one has visited this grave in a long time and gently asks what Marin's relationship to the deceased is. Marin silently kneels with his back to her at the tree, and she realizes his deep connection. Respecting his grief, she excuses herself and leaves him alone. Marin looks at his trembling hand, remembering that the sister said he would return quickly and had promised her that. Touching the carved plaque on the tree, he recalls that she told him not to worry. Raindrops begin falling on his helmet as he kneels there. As the rain turns heavy, he thinks if only he had been present during the attack. He imagines himself confronting the dragon directly and wonders whether the outcome would have changed if he had been there. Overwhelmed by guilt and sorrow, he collapses at the base of the grave tree in the rain. He concludes that whether he could have changed anything is something he will never know for the rest of his life. The rain continues to fall on the silent memorial tree that marks the nursery's grave. Days later, nuns remark that the armored man is still there mourning and worry he will get sick. Watching him kneel unmoving by the tree, they lament how hard this loss must be for him. Marin remains prostrate, grieving before slowly straightening. A piece of bread wrapped in cloth lies on the grass nearby, dropped by someone. One of the nuns discreetly leaves the bread beside him as she walks away. Eventually Marin picks up the loaf from the ground. He brings it to his hidden mouth, trying to bite and swallow. As usual, ordinary food refuses to go down, and he struggles to chew. The bread lands back on the grass as he admits this is not working. He reflects that he cannot keep anything down, every taste making him vomit so that he effectively cannot eat. Seeing others eat the same food without trouble, he realizes the problem lies with his body, not the meals. Sitting again by the grave, he concludes his condition is abnormal since he cannot even satisfy basic hunger. Having lost his family again and been left utterly alone, he wonders what meaning such a miserable existence holds and contemplates ending it. Just then a powerful aroma reaches him and he turns, startled by the smell. He senses something richer than ordinary meat, far more appetizing than anything he has recently tried. His mouth waters uncontrollably in response to the scent. Entranced, he leaves the graveyard and follows smoke rising from the city. He tracks the smell past others heading the same way, eyes fixed on its source. The scent leads into an alley glowing with intense red-orange light. From the shadows he overhears people complaining that they must burn monster meat hotter or it will never be destroyed, noting there are fines for disposing of beasts inside the castle walls. 2 workers tend a blazing fire filled with carcasses. One says it smells good while the other snaps that the danger is people mistaking it for ordinary meat. They argue that although the monster is not poisonous, its similarity to normal meat makes burning it necessary to prevent accidental eating. Marin is shown in stark contrast, gripped by the sight and smell of the burning monster flesh. The supervisor tells the other worker that if he is so concerned, he can haul all the carcasses out of the castle himself, revealing piles of slain beasts ready for burning. Drawn by hunger and desire, Marin watches the roasting meat and thinks to himself how incredibly delicious it smells. A woman notices him suddenly sprinting away from the alley, assuming he is reacting to the strong odor. Back at the graveyard, Marin returns carrying a chunk of charred meat. He cuts off a piece of the monster meat, bringing it closer to inspect it. The juicy interior of the cooked monster flesh oozes as he holds it. He bites into it with his helmet slightly raised, finally managing to chew. The sensation shocks him as he realizes nothing is coming back up. Overjoyed, he declares that this meat is incredibly delicious. He devours it enthusiastically, marveling at the amazing flavor unlike anything he has ever tasted. He savors how, though slightly burnt, the meat overflows with rich, savory juices. He feels that succulent juice filling his mouth, relishing the experience. He notes that this taste is incomparable to the ordinary meals he could not swallow before. Each swallow sends a thrilling, instinct-stirring pleasure down his throat. When he finally stops, he sees his own hand bleeding from gripping the bone too hard. Looking at the bloodied hand, he is stunned by how desperately he clung to the food. Exhausted, he collapses face down on the cemetery stones, barely able to move. Tears drip from beneath his helmet as he silently cries. In his mind he apologizes to everyone from the nursery, saying he is sorry he alone survived. Yet he admits that despite the guilt he still wants to keep living. Clenching his bloody fist beside the gnawed bone, he wishes to live as a human and eat more delicious things. He adds that he wants to live happily and asks whether it is acceptable for him to seek that. Light breaks through the clouds, illuminating the graveyard. Sunbeams bathe Marin and the memorial tree, as if answering his plea. He bows his head under the warm light, listening. A glowing, ethereal hand touches his wounded one on the stone. Startled, he looks up, sensing the presence. When he glances back down, only a bright green leaf now rests on his hand where the phantom touch had been. Feeling as if forgiven, he kneels gratefully before the tree memorial. His lips tremble with leftover crumbs of monster meat as he prepares to speak. Trying to steady himself, he closes his mouth and composes his resolve. Leaves rustle gently overhead, as if the tree acknowledges his decision. Marin shoulders his pack and shield again, ready to move forward. He tells the grave that he is leaving for now. He promises the tree that this time he will return without delay. As he steps back onto the city streets, the narration notes that what follows is the beginning of his secret gourmet journey as an adventurer. The story introduces Hexalim, the towering Central Adventurers Guild in Adurama. Inside Hexalim's bustling hall, narration explains that nearly all adventurers operate through this famed guild. The guild systematically manages and assigns all requests posted on its board. It also oversees dungeon expeditions and subjugations, but registration is selective because of its prestige. Outside, applicants punch a testing machine. A strong hit earns a passing score and the examiner calls for the next candidate. Another hopeful strikes too weakly, earning a failing score and being told to move aside. A hooded elf steps up confidently to take the test while onlookers murmur. The machine's gauge surges from the elf's blow, its center flashing red. The elf's powerful punch sends gusts of wind, showcasing exceptional strength. She lowers her hood, revealing a composed elven face and long hair. The machine displays a high score of 5,312, and the examiner announces it as today's record. The elf calmly celebrates her result as the crowd looks on in amazement. Onlookers remark that she took first place by far, noting even a huge warrior earlier barely passed 3,000. Someone wonders aloud where such a talented rookie suddenly appeared from. A fellow adventurer approaches, congratulates the elf on first place, and invites her to form a party with him, boasting of his own past fame. She looks unimpressed as he suggests that together they could easily reach A rank. She brusquely shakes off his hand, telling him not to touch her so casually. Nearby, Marin apologetically steps past, intent on his own business. A mouse-like guild staffer calls to Marin, asking if he is not going to take a quest, prompting Marin to apologize for being distracted. Watching the braggart walk away, the elf mutters that he is irritating and then asks Marin if he can really take the test properly in his state. Marin answers confidently. She then smiles gently, her expression softening. Placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder, she tells him to relax a bit. She explains that being too nervous will prevent him from showing his true abilities, and Marin awkwardly thanks her. She cheerfully replies that comrades should help each other, signaling the start of their camaraderie. The armored protagonist wonders if he has finally found companions. At the guild, receptionist Daisy happily greets him, saying they have been expecting him. An elf named Daria arrives confidently, being addressed with respect. Daisy tells Daria that rumors of her taking first place in the guild test have already spread, which Daria downplays. Daisy presents an adventurer certificate, officially registering Lady Daria as a Hexalum-affiliated adventurer of D rank. Daria is shocked to be only D rank despite placing first, and Daisy explains all new adventurers start there. Daisy further explains that higher ranks require mission achievements, but assures Daria her skills will let her rise quickly. Daria decides to begin work immediately and asks for a quest she can start now, so Daisy looks over the remaining D rank requests. 2 available jobs are shown: clearing the level 15 Gargoyle Mansion and procuring gremlin eyeballs, and Daria takes them for now. Daisy notes that the Gargoyle Mansion request currently requires a party, surprising and frustrating Daria. A narration explains that Gargoyle Mansion is an unpopular, long unconquered dungeon where monsters have overbred. Because a rampage is possible there, rules require D-rank adventurers to form parties before entering. Back in the guild hall, Daria mutters about the requirement and contemplates needing a party. A nearby man laughs boisterously, contributing to the noisy atmosphere around Daria. Another adventurer idly picks his face, emphasizing the unimpressive options around. Daria laments that there seems to be no one suitable here with whom to form a party. Just as Daria is grumbling about going alone, a violent crash erupts behind him. He turns in shock as a test golem hurtles through the wall toward him. The golem smashes through the guild interior, sending debris flying and people scrambling. In the dust and rubble, people shout to check if anyone is injured. Daisy rushes to Daria, who says he is fine and instead worries about what just happened. People examine the path the heavy golem carved through the wall, wondering how something so heavy was thrown. Daria and Daisy both realize who might have caused it and look toward the new adventurer. The armored protagonist appears in the breached wall, revealing he launched the golem. Pointing at Daria, he is stunned at the situation as everyone stares at him. He immediately prostrates himself and fervently apologizes for the destruction. Daisy tells him he does not need to apologize so profusely, since no one was hurt, and he did not cheat in the test. Another staff member comments that despite working here a long time, he has never seen such a spectacle, while the protagonist apologizes again. Daisy says that as long as he pays for the damage, everything will be fine and begins itemizing costs. She lists repairs to the wall, broken furniture and the destroyed golem, plus compensation for suspended business. Daisy cheerfully totals it as 2 gold and 30 silver, saying paying that will settle the issue. The protagonist opens his near-empty coin pouch in silence, realizing he cannot pay. He timidly asks about the repayment deadline, and Daisy says he can repay whenever he likes. She then adds that if he waits too long the guild might sue, prompting him to vow to repay soon. Resolving himself, he thinks that as a new adventurer he simply has to work hard on requests, though only party-accepted jobs remain. Daria unexpectedly approaches and invites him to join her party for a request she also needs to do. She says comrades should help each other in times like this and flashes him a friendly wink. The armored man internally wonders why the elf is suddenly approaching him and activates his appraisal skill. His appraisal reveals Daria is a level 36 elf archer with high stats and the title Spirit User. Daria proposes that since they share a destination, they can each handle one request, leaving him even more puzzled given her high ability. She confirms with Daisy that they can take the 2 quests together, and that their roles are a good match. Daisy notes that a warrior and an archer make an ideal party composition for these requests. The protagonist worries about joining just because he was asked, but realizes they have not even introduced themselves yet. Daria introduces herself properly and says it is nice to meet him. Though reluctant, the protagonist starts to accept the situation. Remembering his debt, he decides he must resolve it quickly and goes along with the partnership. He introduces himself as Marin Grass and says to call him Marin, sealing the partnership with a handshake. Daria enthusiastically calls him Marin and says they should work hard on their first joint request. Marin reflects that he had wanted to avoid parties, but Daria seems capable and they can split the work, so he need not worry much. Concluding that a hastily formed party might not be so bad, he completes registration with Daria as a 2-person party. As they move to leave, Daria suddenly grabs his hand, confusing him. Marin asks what is going on as Daria stops him to question something serious. With a dark expression, Daria asks Marin if he is truly human. Later, Marin arrives alone at a forested location, confirming he has reached the quest site. He stands before a cave entrance marked as the Gargoyle Mansion dungeon. Daria, already there, impatiently tells him to hurry inside. Inside the dungeon, Daria bitterly complains about having to party with a human, whom he regards as an inferior race. Marin, hearing this, muses about elves as a race. He recalls what he knows of elves as long-lived, beautiful beings often enslaved by humans, souring relations between the races. He contrasts that with Daisy, an elf who showed him kindness, which does not fit that history. As they advance, ominous purple energy swirls around Marin, signaling dungeon danger. The 2 adventurers soon emerge into the eerie courtyard of the Gargoyle Mansion. Marin notes that the interior truly deserves to be called a mansion and feels like a different world. Seeing flying monsters around the building, he targets the gremlins and uses appraise. His appraisal identifies gremlins as level 18 monsters with high attack and sturdy, growing bodies. Watching the swarming gremlins in disgust, Daria orders Marin to stay out of the way and not hinder the request, also insulting humans again. Marin, ignoring him, walks off anyway, leaving Daria startled. Daria yells at Marin not to ignore him and insists he just told the human to stay out of the way. He angrily calls humans rude and short-lived, while Marin retorts that Daria started the hostility, and notes he is already over 100 years old. Confused by Marin's calm response, Daria asks what he is talking about as Marin suggests simply following Daria's original idea of acting separately. Marin proposes they avoid getting in each other's way during the quest, and Daria is shocked that he plans to go in alone without preparation. Marin calmly notes the gremlins are only level 18 and that for people around their strength, no special preparation is necessary. Daria realizes Marin must have seen his stats with a powerful appraisal skill and wonders fearfully if Marin is stronger than he is. He then accuses Marin of having peeked at his information back at the guild. Daria furiously calls him a filthy human for secretly appraising him at the guild. While Daria rants, a gremlin swoops in to attack from behind. Still insulting humans as a despicable race, Daria rants about the impropriety of looking at others' information without permission. He continues shouting, calling Marin shameless. In mid-rant, Daria is ambushed by the attacking gremlin from above. Marin's blade suddenly appears between Daria and the monster as he orders silence in the dungeon. His slash cuts through the air with force, silencing the gremlin. Marin chides that keeping quiet and focusing in a dungeon is basic common sense as the monster's blood sprays. Daria wipes gremlin fluids from his face, rattled. Marin matter-of-factly admits he did see Daria's info during their greeting at the guild. Daria feels vindicated and yells, while Marin adds that if Daria dislikes his presence so much, they should complete their tasks quickly. Turning away, Marin says it is best to finish both their respective objectives as fast as possible. Daria bristles at the implication that he is the one holding others back. He protests loudly, insisting he is not hindering anyone and demanding Marin pull his own weight. Daria declares he will handle the gargoyle boss himself and tells Marin to just collect gremlins, to which Marin indifferently agrees. Marin casually grabs a lunging gremlin by the head, beginning his own part of the quest. He quickly dispatches the gremlins, leaving slain bodies scattered around. Counting up to 50, he decides he has enough gremlin eyeballs for the request. Looking toward Daria's area, he notices another situation developing. Daria's bow has snapped against a gargoyle horn, leaving him in trouble. Marin's appraisal shows the gargoyles as level 21 stone-bodied monsters, stronger variants of gremlins. Daria, panting and surrounded by gargoyles, struggles with his broken weapon. He lunges forward, desperately attacking a gargoyle with his damaged bow. Watching from a distance, Marin judges that Daria probably will not die even if left alone. Seeing no immediate need to intervene, Marin decides to relax and have something to eat. He eyes a gremlin corpse, wondering which parts are edible. Comparing its body to a frog, he decides to butcher it similarly. After trimming to the seemingly edible parts, he notes there is less meat than expected. He chooses to cut the meat small and skewer it. Planning variety, he also skewers some of the organs, thinking they might be tasty like animal offal if cooked properly. He grills the skewers over a campfire until they sizzle. The finished dish, labeled gremlin skewers, looks surprisingly appetizing. Marin admires his first attempt at cooking, thinking the skewers look good. Curious about the taste, he lifts his helmet to take a bite. He begins eating the gremlin skewer. Delighted, he finds it delicious and confirms monster meat can be tasty. He compares the flavor to being closer to duck than chicken, with a pungent, slightly gamey note. He muses that it might be even better with sauce as he continues eating. Satisfied, he strolls along the dungeon corridor still munching on the skewer. Suddenly he collapses as a system message announces he has been afflicted by minor poison. Another message states he is now in a poisoned state. Paralyzed, he realizes his body will not move. Writhing on the ground, he concludes the pungent taste must have been due to poison. Panicking because he has no antidote, he frantically thinks about how to cure himself. An idea strikes him as he remembers the word antidote. Reasoning that gremlins do not use poison offensively, he deduces their bodies must be inherently poisonous yet capable of neutralizing their own toxin. He concludes the liver, the organ that detoxifies poison, is the key and seizes a gremlin liver. With no other option, he eats the liver, betting everything on it working. A system notice confirms the gremlin poison has been neutralized, and Marin breathes a sigh of relief, feeling saved. Sitting up afterward, he admits he thought he was going to die. Reflecting, he wonders if people avoid eating monsters not just out of disgust and decides he needs to study antidotes from now on. At that moment, Daria rushes over, shocked by what he just saw Marin doing. Horrified, Daria demands to know what Marin is up to now. Marin, surrounded by butchered gremlin parts, can only respond weakly as Daria stares in disbelief. Daria, holding his head, laments that humans are even more savage than he imagined after witnessing this grotesque scene. Ranting that this is insane, he cannot fathom how Marin can eat such things so calmly. While Marin tries to interject, Marin says he understands elves are vegetarians but argues that looking down on meat-eaters is wrong, which only angers Daria further. Daria spirals into despair, calling this whole partnership a nightmare, and wishing he could return to the world tree. Trying to refocus, he confirms the Gremlin Eye quest is finished and asks why Marin has not simply left if his part is done. Marin replies that they accepted the job as a two-person party and that if they acted separately, and something happened, both they and Daisy could be held responsible. Daria pictures Daisy and is momentarily taken aback by the idea of her being blamed. Flustered, he insists Daisy's fate is his own concern, not Marin's. Marin notes they still have time left on the request and offers to help finish off the remaining gargoyles so they can complete the party job quickly. Daria refuses help from a human and says he will finish quickly himself, telling Marin to wait. When Marin produces an unfamiliar object, Daria looks on in confusion and asks what it is. Marin raises his sword and a cooking pan, saying he forgot to mention something. He explains that he was originally a shield soldier, and then uses a provocation skill that loudly draws monsters' attention. The sound immediately attracts nearby gremlins. Gargoyles too are roused and begin focusing on him. Daria watches in shock as Marin continues banging the pan with his sword, unable to see how it relates to being a shield soldier. Realizing the implication, Daria nervously tells him to stop. A narration explains that provocation is the primary shield soldier skill used to draw enemy attention and protect allies. It further clarifies that the skill pulls surrounding monsters' focus onto the user to safeguard the party. Consequently, a massive swarm of gremlins and gargoyles now dives toward Marin and the horrified Daria, who calls him insane. Marin calmly notes that while provocation is usually for protecting allies, it also effectively gathers flying enemies into one place. As an overwhelming horde rushes them, he briefly wonders if the skill was always this effective. Dropping the battered pan, he resigns himself with a muttered, "whatever," as the oncoming swarm closes in. The swordsman activates his swordsmanship and martial arts skills, boosting damage and agility for close combat. A group of flying gargoyle-like monsters descends to attack the armored swordsman. An elven archer angrily blames the human swordsman for the chaotic situation but decides to support from afar. The elf is shocked by something unexpected mid-battle. The human swordsman blitzes through the gargoyles, cutting them down with overwhelming speed. The elf stares in disbelief, muttering that this cannot be possible. Watching the human effortlessly finish off the remaining monsters, the elf questions reality. The swordsman reflects that he once struggled to defeat just 5 gargoyles alone, amazed at his current power. Later on a forest path, the elf wonders who this mysterious human really is and asks him to wait. The elf comments that the human basically handled the entire fight but is told achievements are shared for party requests. The swordsman reminds the elf he wanted to finish quickly and trails off with a but. The elf awkwardly says he only helped to speed things up, recalling his earlier harsh words about useless humans. The elf's ears twitch as he hears something unusual nearby. He halts the swordsman, asking if he also heard the strange sound. Telling the human to be quiet, the elf focuses, astonishing him with how mobile elf ears are. The elf suddenly senses something and reacts with alarm. He rushes off toward the source of the sound while the swordsman puzzledly follows. From a cliff, the elf spots a merchant wagon and people stopped below. Down by the wagon, merchants complain that hitting a deer has delayed them from reaching the black market and that its corpse is stuck in the wheel. One merchant viciously kicks a chained elf slave, yelling at him to hurry so they can depart for the market. The watching elf's eyes widen with fury at the abuse. The young elf slave apologizes in terror, begging them to do anything but hit him. The elf mutters to Marin that scenes like this are why he despises humans. He rages that humans claim slavery is abolished but still secretly traffic other races as property. He orders Marin to ready his weapon, insisting such people must be taught through suffering, while Marin questions why he should. Shocked, the elf demands to know what Marin just said. Marin calmly asks how the elf knows this is an illegal slave, pointing out the boy could be lawfully enslaved. The elf argues he clearly heard them mention going to the black market, but Marin says to just report it to guards rather than deviate from their job. Feeling betrayed, the elf says he had hoped Marin was different but now sees him as just like other humans. He decides to attack alone, gripping his bow with grim resolve. Marin pauses and sniffs, picking up a scent on the air. The scene cuts to the wagon where the boy sobs beside the dead deer while a merchant scolds him, and the same strange smell lingers. Inside the wagon, a captured elf mother soothes her frightened chained daughter, promising she is there with her. Remembering a kind nun from his childhood, Marin reflects on innocence. On the cliff, the elf steels himself, wondering if he can pull this off alone. He forces his doubts down, recalling his training to punish those who torment his kin. He unleashes a powerful bow technique, drawing back with determination. The arrow flies with tremendous force toward the wagon area. Mid-shot, the elf notices something unexpected and is startled. The missile slams into the ground by the wagon, exploding and throwing the slave traders into chaos. Coughing in the dust, the traders curse and ask what just happened. They see a sword driven into the wagon wheel and exclaim in surprise. The elf turns to Marin, demanding why he interfered after saying he would not help. Marin recalls being raised to believe children are never at fault regardless of adults' reasons. He states that, whatever adults do, children are blameless and must not be harmed. The traders frantically claim spikes flew from nowhere while a guard points out attackers on the cliff. The elf and Marin now stand together atop the cliff, clearly revealed as the culprits. One trader below nervously shouts, asking who they are. Another angrily demands if they think they can get away with this assault. The elf furiously declares humans arrogant, and says they attacked because their captured comrades are inside that carriage. The lead trader laughs, claiming they are officially licensed slave traders under Marquis Bechtel and that their slaves are legal. Hearing that noble house's name, the elf looks wary and repeats it incredulously. The trader points to the wagon's wolf crest as proof of Bechtel's authority and demands an apology plus repair costs. He mocks forest elves as ignorant troublemakers who cause issues whenever they leave the woods. The insult enrages the elf, who bristles and demands to know what was just said. Marin finds something odd about the claim and speaks up. He points out that the crest on the carriage is not actually Bechtel's true emblem. The trader, irritated, asks who Marin is and insists the wolf symbol of Marquis Bechtel is obviously present. Marin notes that the wolf's eyes in the crest look normal. He explains that the original Bechtel ancestor had only one eye and that the official crest reflects this, so a two-eyed wolf proves their emblem is fake. The supposed guard from Bechtel's house pales as he realizes they have been exposed. The other traders exchange worried glances, falling silent. Marin calmly muses that falsely claiming noble status is still punishable, possibly by death. Panicking, the men order their fighters to kill Marin and his allies since they are only 2 people. One armored warrior charges Marin as Marin philosophizes about how mercenaries once avoided fighting each other. He remarks that such customs seem to have faded, dodging the attack. Marin counters and strikes the warrior with overwhelming force. The warrior screams in agony as blood spurts from his mouth. His body is hurled away, shocking the remaining fighters. The impact leaves a massive crater where he lands. The brute lies broken in the crater, and onlookers marvel that such a large man fell in a single blow. Another attacker takes an arrow or projectile to the face mid-charge. The remaining traitor clutches his wound and curses them as bastards. Faced with Marin and the elf ready to strike again, the slavers surrender in terror. That night, the guild building glows under the stars. Marin is thanked profusely for saving the elves and asked how they can possibly repay him. The freed elf family and the archer express deep gratitude, while the elf archer insists he only did what was right for his kin. Later, the elf apologizes for keeping Marin waiting and asks if everything is resolved. He reports that the illegal traders were handed over to guards and that the rescued family's city relatives will collect them. He adds that since the traders also committed noble fraud, the authorities will handle them properly. Marin shyly calls out, wanting to say something more. The elf woman confirms that Marin was indeed their armored savior. Her young daughter excitedly praises him as cool and thanks him again. The family bids farewell, with the child cheerfully saying goodbye to Mr. Uncle as they leave. Marin silently watches them go, reflective. The elf archer awkwardly prepares to speak, saying he never thought he would say this to a human. He finally thanks Marin for saving them, admitting he dislikes being indebted to a human but owes him for rescuing his brethren. Marin bluntly responds that if the elf is grateful, he should pay him money. He repeats that gratitude should be converted into cash, startling the elf. The elf is outraged that Marin might have helped in the dungeon for money from the start, while Marin argues money is more reliable than feelings. The elf fumes that he cannot believe he felt grateful to a human like this. Grumbling, he thrusts a pouch of coins at Marin and tells him to take it and leave. Storming off and swearing never to trust humans again, the elf departs as Marin shrugs it off, satisfied with having been paid. The next day at Hexam Guild, the bustling hall is shown. At the counter, guild staff verify the collected items, including peaches, and the reward money. The receptionist congratulates Marin on successfully completing his first guild request. She notes that the job's difficulty was high for a first request but praises how quickly he finished it. She hands over the monetary reward for the quest. Marin is confused by how small the payout is and nervously mentions that the reward seems short. The receptionist cheerfully explains that guild rules automatically deduct his existing debt from rewards until fully repaid, so he must understand. Distressed, Marin promises he will repay the debt as soon as he can. Realizing he needs more money, he decides to immediately accept another request and head out again. He moves to the request board to choose his next job. While scanning postings, he thinks he would like to try some new food this time and considers which quests he can take with his rank. He reads a notice for regular subjugation at Stanita Dungeon and dismisses it because it only features stone monsters. Another posting for the higher-level Orc's Hut Dungeon catches his eye as a place he has not yet visited. Imagining delicious slices of orc meat, he wonders if it tastes like pork. Footsteps approach behind him in the guild hall. A cheerful woman Marin met previously greets him, surprised to see him as an adventurer. She jokes she thought he had died since he never ate anything on their earlier trip but is glad he is alive and well. Her party calls to her, and she hurriedly introduces Marin to them. She presents Orga, her party's leader, along with their robed mage companion. Mickey introduces Marin as the strong but picky mercenary she mentioned earlier, and Orga politely says he has heard about him. Mickey explains that Orga also uses a bow and that their third member is Hecate, their mage, saying the three of them have adventured together for a long time. Marin, noting they are 2 archers and 1 mage, wonders who handles frontline combat. Mickey admits they usually hire temporary vanguards but recently have not found any, so they have been unable to visit dungeons despite a shortage of melee fighters. She then reaches out and begins to make Marin a proposal. Mickey formally asks Marin to join their party as the vanguard for a trip to Orc's Hut Dungeon. Marin reacts with visible surprise at the sudden invitation. The scene shifts to the lush exterior of the dungeon, setting up their expedition. Inside the dungeon, an orc hurls a boulder at the party, nearly knocking Mickey from a cliff. An attack strikes the orc's eye, stopping its assault. With Maren as tank and Orga supporting, they wound the orc while Mickey praises Orga's assistance. Hecate finishes the monster with an explosion spell to the head. The orc collapses lifelessly, its hand twitching as blood spreads. Mickey and Hecate celebrate their smooth teamwork. Relieved, Hecate's spellcasting speed was sufficient. Hecate notes that since Maren joined, their hunts have gone far more smoothly. Suddenly they hear rumbling, wondering if it is an earthquake. They realize it is actually many enraged orcs charging toward them. Seeing a horde of some 50 orcs swarming in, Mickey panics that their earlier kills must have drawn the pack. Orga orders everyone to run for now, and the party flees down the path. Hecate stumbles and cries out as she falls. An orc raises its club to smash her while someone screams her name. Terrified, Hecate turns and thinks no. In her eye's reflection, a figure appears rushing in to intervene. Maren darts between her and the orc, slashing so fast that blood sprays everywhere. The next instant, multiple orcs are sliced apart, their bodies and heads flying as Maren carves through the horde. After the massacre, the others check on Hecate, amazed that Maren defeated the entire orc group. Surrounded by orc corpses, Mickey wonders just how strong Maren really is. The last orc roars and lifts its club despite being riddled with arrows. They finish it off, bringing their total kills to 10 and deciding to rest for the day. While resting amid the carcasses, they remark again on Maren's terrifying strength and how thankful they are that Hecate is safe. When Hecate turns to thank Maren personally, she finds he has silently slipped away. She sniffs the air and detects a new scent. Hecate identifies it as roasting meat and wonders why they smell it in the middle of the dungeon. They follow the scent and discover Maren alone, quietly cooking over a small fire. Mickey scolds him for not telling them he was grilling meat and eagerly suggests sharing it with mushrooms she gathered. The view shows Maren calmly pan-frying orc meat beside a butchered orc corpse and bread. Horrified, Mickey yells at him for cooking quest monsters when the request never asked for grilled orc meat as loot. A caption labels his dish as grilled orc thigh as the camera focuses on the sizzling meat in the pan. While tasting grilled orc meat, Maren notes it feels like a blend of cow and pig rather than the pork-like flavor he expected. Curious, he keeps eating and wonders whether the meat leans more toward beef or pork in taste. After another bite, Maren concludes the grilled orc meat is very tasty. He relishes the overflowing juices and rich flavor, decides it resembles pork more than beef, and praises its fatty, tender savoriness. His companions react in horror at him eating orc meat, while the priestess prays to cleanse evil and bring peace to the land. Maren muses that next time he will season the orc meat with salt and pepper before grilling. Confident in his new recipe, Maren declares the seasoned orc steak is guaranteed to be delicious. After eating the seasoned meat, he happily judges that simple pepper seasoning is perfect, though he notes it is a bit greasy and might pair well with vegetables. Watching from afar, two party members are disturbed that Maren is not only eating monster meat but clearly enjoying it, wishing it were only a dream. Maren calls the others over while casually continuing to eat, unaware they are huddling together uneasily. He assumes the meal is over and thinks about taking leftover orc meat home to make even tastier dishes. Someone grips his shoulder and calls his name, interrupting his planning. The archer explains he has heard of people eating monsters out of necessity but asks Maren to refrain from doing it so openly. While Maren is surprised they are not expelling him, they reassure him that they would not discard a capable vanguard just for odd tastes, and the priestess shyly offers to share biscuits with him. Maren politely refuses more food while the others urge everyone to eat and rest, offering beef jerky that he again declines. A flashback shows a huge orc roaring in a forest. Maren and his old party form up to confront the monster with weapons and magic ready. The enraged orc charges to attack them. Maren blocks a powerful blow with his shield. The party combines arrows and magic lightning to subdue the orc as it clashes with Maren. Back at the current camp, the priestess watches Maren cooking by the fire with a troubled expression. Another memory shows Maren and comrades around a campfire in a deep pit or ravine at night. In the present, a party member notes it is the last day of their request and asks why Maren still insists on sleeping apart. He answers that it is simply easier. As the others prepare for night watch, the female fighter silently broods while the priestess yawns and the archer volunteers for first watch. Maren lies down to sleep as the priestess thanks everyone and wishes them good night. He drifts off listening to the soothing crackle of the campfire. As he sleeps, the glow of the fire reflects on his helmet, leading into a dream. In the dream, his previous party relaxes by a campfire joking that their priest is unusually fond of picking fights. Returning from gathering wood, Maren is teased that he took so long even though the fire is already lit. He remembers his former leader smiling back at him. Maren abruptly wakes from the nightmare shouting his full name. He finds his current party standing tensely around him, surprised by his outburst. Confused, Maren asks why everyone is awake, thinking it is not yet his turn for watch. The priestess, aiming a charged spell at his head, tells him not to move. She warns that if he moves his head will be blown off and urges him to calmly answer their questions. She admits they used an appraisal stone while he slept because his abnormal toughness made them curious about his true level and identity. Holding the glowing stone, the fighter nervously asks what the frightening result they saw about Maren actually means. The appraisal window shows Maren Gross with obscured stats but titles including Magic Tower Successor, Intermediate Knight, and the ominous Kinslayer, which his comrades demand he explain. Marin silently processes the revelation. The narration defines the Kinslayer title as one earned by massacring over 100 members of one's own race. It further notes that the title boosts attack power against one's own race, over images of Marin standing amid the corpses of slain humans. Horrified, the fighter exclaims that Marin has killed more than 100 people and says this cannot be ignored. The archer reasons that although Marin has no criminal record with the Hexalim Guild, this title is a separate and serious issue. The priestess, magic still ready, demands Marin justify how he obtained such a title if it is all a misunderstanding. Marin stays silent, tightening with unease. The others press him, wondering if he joined them intending murder, and again insists that he explain why he bears the Kinslayer title. Marin can only apologize, unable or unwilling to give details. The archer says regardless of circumstances they cannot ignore the situation, caring little about Marin's tastes or level compared to his history of killing humans. He bluntly states that knowing Marin has killed people makes him impossible to trust. He then formally asks Marin to leave their party. Marin quietly accepts the decision and prepares to go. He shoulders his pack and walks away while the remaining three watch in awkward silence. The story flashes back 100 years earlier in the southern Tursan forest. A goblin lunges out with a feral scream. Young Marin and his old party fight multiple goblins in coordinated formation. The archer gleefully notes their trap worked perfectly as she fires her bow. Her arrows pierce the goblins, quickly killing them. The goblins lie dead at their party's feet. Their armored leader praises the team's work and checks if anyone is hurt. She commends the archer's skill in dropping 2 targets at once while the archer downplays the praise. The priest jokes about still having many goblins left to kill, while Marin, who has done little, is chided for only talking big. The leader asks Marin if he has finished organizing monster subjugation proofs. With deference he addresses her as Charlotte, confirming they are ready to move out. As they walk, the priest grouses about a cheeky guild receptionist and wonders why there seem to be fewer goblins than reported. Marin suggests they may be only at the forest entrance and that more goblins could be deeper inside, prompting speculation about a hidden settlement. Later that night he notes he has never heard of monsters running away in fear, and then senses something strange. Approaching Charlotte, he asks if she can hear him, realizing something is wrong. He turns to find his comrades' corpses standing like undead figures with glowing red eyes. Nightmarish eyes surround him as accusing voices demand why he did such a thing to them. They further question why he alone survived their massacre. Marin bolts awake from the trauma, still haunted by the memory. He sits up gasping in his bed, back in the guild's lodging. Sitting silently, he stares out his window, still shaken. Time passes, and the scene shifts to the bustling adventurers' guild hall. When Marin enters the guild, patrons whisper and stare at him. People gossip that he is the rumored killer, warning each other not to make eye contact. Others whisper that he is a murderer who joins parties under false pretenses and then extorts them, questioning whether someone like that should be in the guild. Marin realizes rumors about him have spread during his short rest and thinks people are exaggerating freely. He resolves to ignore the gossip and greets the receptionist, who says he arrived at the perfect time with important news. She informs him that, effective immediately, he has been promoted to C-rank adventurer, surprising him because he never took the exam. She explains the C-rank exam was abolished. Adventurers whose ability proves high enough over time are promoted automatically. Marin notes how the system has changed since his past life and asks if he can start taking C-rank requests right away. The receptionist happily agrees and spreads out the remaining C-rank request sheets for him to choose from. Marin reflects that his job options have expanded now that his rank rose, then something on the board catches his eye. He focuses on a request titled Harpy's Nest, a level 30 job to gather harpy feathers. Seeing the word harpy makes him imagine buckets of fried chicken, and he excitedly thinks that, after trying pork-like orc meat, he should now sample bird-like harpy meat. Just then someone insults him as a money-obsessed bastard, drawing his attention. An elf adventurer, Dahlia, greets him casually, remarking that for a human it has been a long time. Dahlia mentions the rumors that Marin has killed over 100 humans and calls him a celebrity among adventurers, while Marin states he intends to take the harpy request. When Marin ignores him, Dahlia complains that humans should be grateful non-humans like them approached him, referring to a group that is disliked by humans. A red-haired beast woman appears and asks Dahlia if this is the human he mentioned, while Marin acknowledges her presence. The beast woman, with ears and tail visible, stands confidently before him. Dahlia introduces her as the leader of the party he recently joined. She cheerfully introduces herself as a Motar, saying she has heard much about Marin from Dahlia, who frantically tells her not to overshare. Marin internally notes that this beast man looks like a martial artist based on her gear. Using his appraisal ability, he reads a Motar's stats, learning she is a high-level beastman priest with strong combat titles. He notes that, as expected, Emotar's greatest stat is physical strength. Shocked, Marin checks again to confirm that her listed job really is priest. Emotar proudly declares that her job is priest, while Marin skeptically questions what about her appearance implies that. Marin compares his idea of a cleric healer to Emotar's brawler build and concludes she looks anything but holy. Dahlia explains he sought a party of non-humans and happened upon Emotar's recruitment for a human-hating party, which he decided to join. Emotar adds that so far their party only consists of her and Dahlia, and that she sought Marin after hearing the rumors about him. She admits she originally argued they did not need a human even if he was a kinslayer, but approved his joining after hearing of his skills. Marin, confused by their odd reasoning, says he does not fully understand, while Dahlia chastises him for his slow human understanding. Someone extends a hand toward Marin. Emotar enthusiastically declares that Marin will join their party, saying she admires how many humans he has killed and will specially accept him. Marin questions why he should accept such a proposal, but Emotar points out that given his reputation he has few other options. Observing other adventurers clearly wary of him, Marin realizes she is right. He decides that with the kinslayer rumors widespread, finding any other party would be impossible, so he agrees to accompany them for now. Emotar celebrates his acceptance, praising his decision. She suggests they immediately test their coordination and skills together, prompting Marin to ask where they are headed. She answers that the destination is obvious. Emotar points at the harpy request, declaring they are going to the dungeon. The trio proceeds into a dark cavernous dungeon. Screeching harpies swoop down from above to attack them. Emotar urges everyone forward, saying they should just beat the harpies first. Marin notes that flying monsters are troublesome for a shield bearer, but prepares to fight. As he considers jumping to reach them, an arrow suddenly streaks past and hits a harpy. With Dahlia's arrows dropping enemies from the sky, Marin realizes having an archer simplifies the battle. Dahlia vows not to let humans steal their prey again and tells Marin to stand firm as a proper shield bearer and watch the show. Another harpy plummets toward them in a frenzy. Emotar yells for Marin to raise his shield as a harpy dives. She plants a foot on his shield to use it as a springboard. Catapulted upward, Emotar launches herself into the air. She soars past the harpy and smashes it with a powerful strike. The dead harpy crashes down around them as Emotar lands beside Marin. Emotar praises Marin's fast reaction and calls their teamwork good, while he simply asks her to warn him earlier next time. Watching his new companions fight, Marin admits to himself that having comrades he can battle alongside is not so bad. After several kills, Emotar happily notes that their coordination is decent and suggests they clean up and rest since they have already taken down several harpies. Marin notices something odd among the fallen bodies. He discovers a small fluffy creature waving feathers and wonders if it is a monster. Dahlia mocks Marin for not knowing about trendy living dolls, which he compares to golems. Dahlia explains that these pet golems move when infused with mana and that this particular one is a valuable limited edition model called Foco. Dahlia praises the doll for gathering scattered feathers, calling it a good boy. He adds that since it runs on mana, it needs no food and only stops when broken. If raised well, it can assist in both fighting and cleaning. Emotar jokes that Dahlia is acting like a child and says he simply loves cute things, while Marin watches them fuss over the doll. Dahlia clutches Foco protectively when Marin looks at it. Emotar warns Marin that the doll is a golem and strictly off-limits as food, while Marin insists he said nothing. She orders them both to hurry and keep hunting. Later, Dahlia remarks that luck is on their side since they have already eliminated nearly half the target number, and Emotar agrees their hunt is going smoothly. Emotar asks why Dahlia hesitated earlier to introduce Marin despite his strength, wondering if it is because he is human. Dahlia vaguely says there are circumstances, while Emotar sniffs the air and suddenly smells something delicious, like roasted chicken. Realizing Marin is missing, Dahlia and Emotar suspect he has slipped away to secretly grill meat and vow to catch him in the act. Indeed, Marin has set up a campfire and cutting board, preparing pieces of harpy meat beside a pan. He seasons the meat with salt, notes the pan is preheated, and gets ready to grill. As the pieces sizzle, Marin enjoys the sound, reminding himself not to burn them and to flip them evenly before plating. He finishes cooking a dish he calls grilled harpy shoulder loin and presents it on a plate. Examining the meat that looks exactly like chicken, he reasons that since harpies resemble birds it should taste similar. He takes a bite and is stunned into silent delight. Marin ecstatically concludes that the texture matches chicken but the flavor is richer, juicy, non-gamey, and slightly sweet. Just as he plans what to cook next, Dahlia and Emotar rush in shouting for him to stop, with Dahlia yelling that he knew Marin would do something like this and demanding to know what is wrong with him. Around the campfire, the armored human apologizes for eating alone and offers food, but the elf scolds him for eating something that still has a recognizable face. The beastkin girl reels in horror at what she saw, crying that it is the worst thing she has ever experienced. The human calmly explains that a harpy's face is not truly human-like, prompting the beastkin to shout that he is missing the point. The elf laments having witnessed such brutality twice while the beastkin licks her lips, tempted despite herself. The human presents neatly cooked pieces on a plate, leaving the other two stunned and exasperated. The beastkin fights her appetite, calling the food a monster and berating herself for thinking it looked tasty. Watching the human calmly eat, the beastkin's ears perk up as her attention returns to the meal. The human casually offers her a bite of harpy meat, but she and the elf angrily refuse, shocked he thought she would eat it. As the human praises the flavor, the aroma and sight of the meat make the beastkin visibly waver. Overwhelmed, she cries that a human is cruelly tempting her, while the elf struggles to calm her down. Smelling the stew, the beastkin demands to know why a monster can smell so delicious, prompting the human to remember the pot on the fire. He lifts the lid, judges that the contents simmered too long but are fully cooked, and prepares to serve it. The dish is revealed as stewed harpy legs. Shocked that he eats the legs with almost no meat, the beastkin hears him say he wanted to try plain unseasoned chicken feet at least once. The human readies himself and bites into the stewed leg. He analyzes the texture like a gourmand, noting the slow simmer made the meat pudding soft and held together by gelatin. He muses that the legs would be perfect with spicy sauce and considers taking a leftover one home to season properly. The elf glares at the harpy leg in his hand, distressed by what he is watching. Seeing him gnawing again, the elf shouts to know what he is eating now, and the human offers to share. The elf yells that harpy talons contain paralysis poison just as the human swallows, and the human collapses in shock. The elf orders the beastkin priest to use a status ailment cure, but she sheepishly admits she never learned the basic priest spell because it seemed troublesome. Their shouting attracts another harpy, and the beastkin blames the elf for alerting it. The beastkin steps forward, excited to show off a newly learned attack spell while the elf warns her not to rush. She unleashes a towering inferno that engulfs the harpy and, disastrously, the human's pet Foco. The elf screams in horror over the charred remains of the pet he had owned for less than a week. As smoke rises and the human and elf twitch on the ground, the beastkin falls silent, stunned by the devastation she caused. The enraged elf grabs her, accusing her of killing his beloved Foco, while she apologizes and blames her low spell proficiency. He vows to hold a grudge for centuries, while she nervously offers to buy him a new one, which he rejects because it was a limited edition pet. Back at the guild, the receptionist confirms receiving the Harpy Nest quest items. The trio, looking drained, ask the guild to discard any remaining meat from the harpy corpses themselves. Leaving the counter, the elf complains that the day was mentally exhausting, while the beastkin reminds him he promised to buy her a replacement Foco. The human silently pulls out another harpy leg from a bag, shocking the beastkin. She panics, asking if he plans to eat even more, and he replies that after spending time butchering it, wasting it would be foolish. She urges him to at least store it away using his magic storage ability, which he seems to have forgotten about. A status window appears explaining his storage skill, a personal mana-made vault that holds limited non-living items. He opens the empty grid-like storage space and realizes he had forgotten it existed. Embarrassed, he reflects that he has been hauling heavy baggage around unnecessarily, which explains the strange looks from others. Disturbed at having forgotten something so basic, he wonders if his mind is deteriorating. The beastkin calls out to him, asking what he thought of their performance, snapping him out of his thoughts. She and the elf evaluate the quest, saying their abilities and teamwork were decent despite the messy ending, and invite him to consider continuing with them. The beastkin formally proposes they form an official party, insisting that together they can clear any quest. The human weighs the idea, noting that though they are misanthropic, they are capable. He reflects that having comrades is better than being alone while looking at the confident beastkin and composed elf. He agrees to join the party, which delights the beastkin. Overjoyed, she dashes off to register them officially as a party at once. The elf tells the human that despite everything, he is now their comrade. Introducing himself fully, the elf asks the human to treat him well for the rest of the human's short life. The human recalls a past moment when another armored comrade once extended a similar welcoming hand. Pulled from his memory, he awkwardly responds in kind to his new allies. The beastkin returns waving the registration paper, announcing she has finished applying for their official party status. She excitedly reveals the newly registered party name. To the other's horror, she has named it the Mess Party. The elf explodes, complaining about both the undemocratic decision and the ridiculous name. She explains she picked the word because she heard the human mutter it at the harpy nest and found it moving. She cheerfully repeats that she simply liked the sound of the word, while the elf screams at the absurdity of using it without understanding its meaning. He reminds her that everyone must agree on a party name, but she says there were no other suggestions, so she just followed the leader's choice. The elf despairs that all his future achievements will be recorded under the name Mess, and cries out to the world tree about his misfortune. The human reasons that a strange party name is not the end of the world and decides to focus instead on grilling the remaining harpy meat back at the inn. When the beastkin asks where he is going, he replies that he is heading back to the inn. She insists that because a new member has joined, they must hold a welcome party and drinking celebration with their quest reward. He tries to decline, but she says a welcome party is meaningless without the new member, and tells the elf to join after he stops crying. Night falls over the inn as voices inside cheer. At the bustling tavern, the beastkin urges her companions to eat and drink as much as they like. Still hung up on the party name, the elf grumbles that he cannot accept being called Mess, while she tells him to give up since the name is already submitted. The elf shouts in frustration over whose fault that is, while the human simply notes that the feast looks delicious. The human stares quietly at the platter of food before him. Tempted, he wonders if he can allow himself just one bite. As the elf critiques the lame name and the beastkin mocks his taste, the human chews the food and judges that it tastes terrible, like chewing hot newspaper. The beastkin tells the elf to drop the name issue and says she has something to discuss with Marin, prompting the human to ask what topic they mean. She says it concerns the party's goal, revealing that their aim is to reach A rank as quickly as possible. When the human asks why A rank, the elf answers that each of them has their own reasons. A narration explains that adventurers in Hexali start at rank D and can climb via promotion tests up to rank B. Beyond B, advancement to A rank and higher requires being recognized for exceptional skill and achievements. The content of the A-rank promotion test is a closely guarded mystery, known only to a few elites acknowledged by the guild. The beastkin begins sharing her reason, staring at the roast chicken as she steals herself. She reveals that her younger siblings remain enslaved by humans, and that she needs a large sum of money to buy their freedom. She explains that her master allowed her a 3-year reprieve to earn the money, promising during that time not to sell or harm her siblings and to sell their status if she succeeds. Because her family became slaves after the revolution that ended official slavery, the only way to gain freedom is to buy back their status with money. The human, unfamiliar with the event, repeats the word revolution in confusion. The elf and beastkin are shocked he does not know. They assume he must have lived isolated for decades to miss such a major recent human event. The elf offers to explain simply, starting with how humans abducted and trafficked non-human races for centuries. He describes how elves were captured for their beauty, dwarves for their skills, and beastkin were enslaved as lesser beasts. Among those captured, he says, was the beastkin girl's family. He recounts how the captives were confined in prisons and used to satisfy human desires. Their kin fell ill in body and spirit inside those hopeless cages. Those who attempted escape and were caught were brutally killed. Over time, oppressed races formed an alliance to confront human tyranny after years of exploitation. That alliance launched what they called the Revolution, though humans later remembered it as the Race War. The allied races demanded, among other things, the abolition of slavery and threatened a full-scale war if the humans refused. Humans initially took a hardline stance but, having far more to lose, began to waver. Eventually they accepted the terms, signing a treaty that outlawed trafficking of non-humans and set rules to preserve non-human lands. Afterward, non-humans gradually came out of hiding and could walk the streets more openly. The elf notes that this treaty is what allows him and Immortale to work as adventurers today. The beastkin adds that she became an adventurer as soon as she was freed because it is the fastest way to earn the money needed for her siblings. Curious, the human asks about the elf's own circumstances. Dahlia answers that his goal is to become the elder of the forest where he lives. He explains that his bloodline has long served as forest elders and that the role is passed to the eldest child of each generation. His older sister despises the idea of inheriting the position, yet their kin insist on forcing it onto her because of tradition. Dahlia clenches his fist, declaring he is more confident than anyone in protecting the forest. He says his kin agreed to let him take the elder's seat if he could achieve enough accomplishments in the outside world by age 150. Thus, becoming an A-rank adventurer is not sufficient by itself but is an essential step toward that greater goal. The human reflects that from escaping slavery to becoming an elder, each of his companions bears heavy motivations. Dahlia then says that since they each have wishes, he hopes the human will help them move toward those goals, ideally with a similar aim of his own. The beastkin directly asks the human what goal he wants to achieve. The question triggers a memory of him sitting before a memorial tree, contemplating his past. Back at the table, he stays silent, prompting his companions to reassure him that it is fine if he does not want to share. He clenches his fist, deciding this might be the purpose of his journey. At last he declares that there is a specific dragon he wants to kill. Dahlia and the beastkin react in shock, barely able to say the word dragon. He clarifies that it is the dragon that once destroyed the village of Adris, and he is determined to slay that very creature. He adds that there is also something important he must do when he finally meets that dragon. Expecting ridicule, he assumes they will treat his vow as a joke. Instead, they address him seriously, calling him human and prompting him to continue. Dahlia remarks that he thought the human had no desires, and now sees that his ambition may be even greater than theirs, joking that he probably wants to eat the dragon too. Dahlia concludes that the human's objective also requires ranking up, since only high-rank adventurers can join dragon hunts or access information. With shared goals established, they raise their mugs and toast to working hard together from now on. Morning comes over the town as a new day begins. In his room, the human thinks that since they officially formed a party yesterday, he will spend the day resting and cooking a hearty meal. After buying ingredients and finding himself nearly broke, he counts his remaining coins and laments how lodging costs have drained him. Accepting the expense, he begins by heating a pan of oil. Remembering his storage skill, he activates it to retrieve preserved ingredients. His hand reaches into the glowing dimensional slit to pull the items out. He happily confirms that the raw meat he stored remains fresh. Realizing the storage keeps food in perfect condition, he celebrates it as an ideal pantry. He starts cooking by whisking eggs into flour to make batter. He coats the meat pieces evenly in the breadcrumb mixture. He then lowers a battered piece into the hot oil. Listening to the satisfying sizzle, he enjoys the sound as the meat fries. He plans to fry until golden brown, flipping the pieces several times and double frying them for extra crispiness. When finished, he drains the oil and proudly completes a dish of harpy thigh fried chicken. He tests a piece with a fork, breaking the crisp coating. Inspecting it, he notes that for a first attempt it fried well and that cutting the meat into slightly larger chunks was ideal. He lifts his helmet just enough to eat the nugget. Ecstatic, he describes the perfect combination of crispy batter and juicy harpy meat, declaring harpies delicious. He further compares the subtle sweetness of harpy meat to richly packed crab. Loving the addictive flavor, he is glad the portion was small, reasoning it was impossible for meat this good to taste bad once fried. While he eats, Dahlia calls from outside asking if he is inside, and the human recognizes the elf's voice. Dahlia pounds on the door, wondering if the human is still asleep at midday and demanding he open up. The door creaks open from within. The human, still helmeted, steps out asking what the elf wants, and Dahlia questions why he even wears the helmet in his own room. Dahlia says he has something urgent to discuss and asks to come in, while the human says he was eating and asks what is wrong. Dahlia explains that something has happened to Immortale, startling the human. The human invites him in and asks for details, noting it is better discussed in private. On seeing the plate of fried harpy, Dahlia recoils and accuses him of cooking with monster meat again. Dahlia tries to set his outrage aside, deciding Immortale's situation is more important at the moment. Sitting down, he first makes the human promise not to tell Immortale what he is about to say, then asks if the human can lend him some money. The human is baffled by the sudden request. Offended, he darkens and says if all the elf wants is money there is no need to ask, ordering him to leave. But Immortale's voice off-screen urges him to hear the elf out. Dahlia sits again, and the human warns that if the reason for borrowing is not convincing he will kick him out immediately. Dahlia begins explaining that Immortale was apparently deceived in the past by his human master. The armored protagonist reacts in disbelief upon hearing they have been deceived. Outside the inn, companions discuss how Immortale has been saving money for his younger siblings and went to visit them, hence today's break from requests. A clenched fist slams the table as someone begins to explain that something terrible happened with Immortale's master today. In a redlit auction hall, a child sibling is shown in a cage as narration reveals the master broke his promise and plans to sell the siblings. The knight deduces that the human master freed the siblings only to use them later as a cruel game against Immortale. A beastwoman recalls how, when Immortale begged the master to stop the auction, he was told it would be cancelled only if he produced a ransom within 5 days, and she asks how much he had managed to save in 3 years. Immortale learns the ransom is 10 gold per person, 20 gold total, and is shocked by how high that is. The reincarnated narrator explains this world's currency. 1 bronze is almost equal to 10 yen, 100 bronze equals 1 silver, 100 silver equals 1 gold, matching the value system of his previous life. He adds that an average adventurer lives on about 2 gold a month, so 20 gold equals roughly 2 million yen, an immense sum to raise in only 5 days. The beastwoman says she hesitated to spread such a story, but Immortale, usually proud, begged her to at least save his siblings. At a table, the elf confirms he came to borrow the ransom on Immortale's behalf, saying he cannot ignore slavery because minority races are their comrades by treaty. When he solemnly swears to repay even a small loan, the knight curtly refuses, noting they have only just formed a party. The knight adds he never had that much money to begin with and demands proof before lending such a huge sum, while the elf reflects that this bluntness is typical of him. The elf, worried, mutters that Immortale is in serious trouble. The knight perks up when he hears the siblings are tiny children who have only just learned to walk. He angrily accuses the elf of emotionally manipulating him with that detail, while the elf insists he is only stating facts. The knight asks what benefit he gains if he lends money, prompting the elf to babble about interest while the knight points out the risks of death or default. The elf falters, realizing his reasoning is weak. Clenching his fist again, he wonders if resorting to some drastic measure is the only way. The knight suddenly calls the elf over to whisper something. Whispering, the elf asks if the knight has the wind attribute, and the knight replies he does not, puzzled by the secrecy. Narration explains that while any element's magic can be used with enough intelligence, aptitude attributes make some elements easier and stronger. It further explains that aptitude attributes indicate which elements suit a person, reducing magic cost and increasing power for those elements. Another explanation notes, most people are born with a single attribute, granted at birth. Rare geniuses may be born with multiple attributes, and history's greatest mages largely come from this group. The elf steels himself and says that if the knight helps in this matter, he offers to bestow on the knight a special wind attribute blessing of the spirits as payment, which intrigues the knight. The elf anxiously asks if that reward is still insufficient, and the knight replies that the issue is how rare and difficult such bestowal actually is. The elf swears by the forest that he truly can grant attributes with his ability, and demands to be believed. The knight finally agrees to the deal. As they leave, the knight casually eats while saying they should get going, and the elf looks exhausted but follows. The narrative shifts back outside the guild building as they depart. Walking through town, the elf asks how the knight intends to raise 20 gold, admitting that even requesting the favor was a lot. The knight answers that they will have to illegally poach high-level dungeon monsters and sell the materials on the black market. The elf is alarmed, reminding him that entering dungeons above one's guild rank without permission is forbidden. The knight acknowledges this but argues it is the only way to make a large amount quickly, while the elf insists it is too dangerous and illegal. Narration explains guild requests are ranked like adventurers and taking requests above one's rank is strictly prohibited. It further notes that breaking these rules and entering such dungeons leads to heavy fines and temporary bans from taking requests. The knight then reasons that even aside from legality, reaching distant high-level dungeons would take too long. He estimates it would cost 3 to 4 days just to travel to such a dungeon and back, nearly using up the 5-day deadline. The knight turns the question back on the elf, asking how he personally plans to get money. The elf says he considered asking his distant family for help but decided instead to pool his modest adventuring savings, though it will not be much. The knight asks if the elf, named Marin, has any savings or valuables of his own. Marin recalls that the knight only recently became an adventurer like him and suggests selling any possessions that could be converted into money. The knight opens his item storage, reviewing his belongings and thinking about which is most valuable. He decides that a particular pair of ornate earrings is likely his best asset. They agree to each gather as much money as possible separately and meet again later to combine funds. Time passes to evening over the city, marking the end of their preparation day. The knight, cloaked, heads into a hidden underground market. He opens a heavy door, entering a secret room. A suspicious shopkeeper asks what he wants as the cloaked knight approaches. The knight says he has something to sell and the fence invites him to show any monster parts or other illicit goods. The knight places the pair of earrings on the counter. The fence initially dismisses them as ordinary jewelry that should be sold in a normal shop. Then he suddenly realizes what they are and becomes agitated. He identifies the earrings as an extremely rare item called Fragment of the Pleiades, obtainable only from a vanished dungeon, and demands to know where the knight got such a treasure. The knight, still hooded, quietly answers that he received them long ago from a comrade. The scene shifts to an imposing noble mansion, likely the slave master's home. Inside, Immortale trembles on her hands and knees as the cruel master mocks her for calming down. The master gloats that she must finally realize her resistance was futile and taunts her beast-like mind. He says granting her 3 years of freedom was nothing but a whim and sarcastically asks if she enjoyed her walk outside. Immortale seethes with murderous hatred, fantasizing about killing him and crushing his smug face. Her ears twitch when she suddenly hears someone call out to her, asking if she is there. Recognizing the voice, she turns in shock. The elf Dahlia and the knight Marin arrive, and Dahlia calls out to her. Immortale, baring her fangs, demands to know why Dahlia brought the hated human, and Dahlia says the knight helped prepare the money. Immortale angrily questions what is going on, but Dahlia insists the details can wait, and that they must focus on the ransom first as Marin presents a bulging money bag. Marin steps forward, introduces them as Immortale's party members, and announces they have brought the required ransom to buy her brothers. Immortale resents having to rely on a human and worries he might use this debt to torment her later. The master sneers that low-rank C-class adventurers cannot possibly have raised so much money and implies he will check for counterfeit coins. When he pours out the coins and sees they are genuine gold, he is shocked that they really managed the full 20 gold so quickly. Immortale insists the gold is real and demands her siblings be released immediately. The master concedes they have the money but invokes a contract clause saying Immortale herself had to earn it personally. He claims that because the funds came from others, the contract is invalid, leaving Immortale aghast. Dahlia snaps that according to the treaty, a slave's family can ransom them regardless of who supplied the money, accusing the master of violating the law. Cornered by that argument, the master reluctantly orders his men to bring the slaves and their identity documents. Immortale fumes about his attempt to change the terms and thinks that without Dahlia she would have been helpless. A servant returns, thanking them for waiting as he re-enters the room. 2 small fox-like siblings are let in, and Immortale cries out to them. She rushes to embrace them, asking tearfully if they are hurt. While Immortale sobs with relief and apologizes for being late, Marin watches silently. Marin notes that the children are exactly as Dahlia described, appalled that such young ones were enslaved and neglected. Seeing how thin they are, he clenches his fist in anger, condemning the master for starving children. The master hands over the original identity documents for the siblings as proof of transfer. Holding the papers, Marin states that he will now dispose of them, thereby finalizing the siblings' freedom. Immortale ignites flame magic in her hand, preparing to act. She burns the slave documents to ash while hugging her siblings protectively. The master grudgingly acknowledges that the siblings are now completely free but smugly reminds Immortale that she herself remains his slave and dismisses the party. Marin declines the master's mocking offer of the discarded slave chains and readies himself to act further. He announces that he intends to purchase Immortale's slave status as well. Everyone in the room, including Dahlia and Immortale, is stunned by this declaration. Immortale protests that she does not need his help beyond saving her siblings and insists she can handle the rest herself. Ignoring her, Marin asks the master if more gold will suffice to buy Immortale too. He then chuckles an apology to Immortale for ignoring her outburst. The master, grinning wickedly, claims Immortale has already been consigned to that day's slave auction and says he must refuse the direct sale. His steward explains that since she is already listed for auction, canceling would be difficult. Instead they suggest the party attend the auction and buy her there. Immortale is shocked to hear she is to be auctioned, insisting no such plan was mentioned before. Dahlia accuses the human of lying again and rejects his excuse. The master laughs that selling a legal slave is his right, and that how he trades her is entirely up to him under their agreement. Dahlia fumes that this is a dirty trick, but Marin tells him to think strategically. Marin concludes inwardly that the auction story is a convenient fabrication and that, because Immortale is legally the man's property, they cannot prevent him from selling or auctioning her. Aloud he accepts that they will have to buy her at the auction, surprising Immortale. Immortale, bewildered yet hopeful, asks the human what he is planning. As they leave, Marin advises her not to act recklessly and to wait at the auction, hinting that he has a plan. She wonders why he is going so far for her. A close-up shows Marin silently resolving himself. He recalls a lesson from his past, that all children need someone to look after and guide them. The memory continues with a caretaker saying the same applies to him, emphasizing adults must protect the young. A gentle hand is shown patting a child's head, reinforcing the idea of protection. A kindly nun figure declares that every child deserves protection and that safeguarding them is his purpose. Back in the present, Marin tells the freed siblings that only their big sister can truly protect them. He further explains to Immortale that saving her brothers is only the beginning and she must stay with them, feed them, and guide them properly. Moved, Immortale agrees to try living that way. She warns Marin that if he brags and then fails at the auction, she will not forgive him. Outside, Dahlia agrees to follow Marin's plan for now and says they will meet Immortale again at the auction house. After they depart, Immortale clutches her siblings and looks uneasily toward the gloating master. The master laughs that Immortale has surprisingly reliable comrades. He taunts her, asking if she really believes those weak allies can truly free her. Grabbing her chin, he says he has no intention of simply selling her off at auction. He menacingly tells her that no matter what she does, she can never escape him. He vows that she will ultimately return to him, terrifying her. After the others leave, Immortale demands to know what he is plotting as he orders preparations for the auction, clearly scheming something. Night falls over the mansion as the auction time approaches. At the auction hall, a new lot is introduced, a criminal human male slave with a record of violent crimes, in good health. Marin and Dahlia sit among the bidders as the auctioneer opens bidding for that man at 4 gold. Marin explains he has learned that Beastman slaves usually sell for 8 to 9 gold, so he and Dahlia believe their combined funds should cover even a slightly higher price. They watch as the current slave sale progresses, waiting for Immortale's turn. The auctioneer announces that the next item is of a different race, catching Marin's attention. Immortale is brought on stage, described as a wolf beastwoman hero from the Frontier Coliseum and a cleric capable of healing magic. She stands in chains, glaring determinedly at the crowd. She thinks bitterly that her master must have used some underhanded method to arrange this, and that she needs to warn Dahlia. The auctioneer emphasizes her superior beastman physique and youth to entice bidders. Her former master watches eagerly from a balcony, pleased she is finally on stage. From the seating, Dahlia worries that they have already spent a lot of money and that their remaining funds are limited. The master sneers that the adventurers are fools to think they can buy the immortal. A rival bidder in green vows he will not let them succeed. The auctioneer sets Immortale's starting price at 6 gold and 30 silver, and begins the bidding. The wealthy man in green immediately raises his paddle to bid. The auctioneer recognizes him as bidder 57 and invites him to declare his price, prompting Dahlia to curse that they acted first. The man in green boldly offers 20 gold, stunning Dahlia. Immortale is shaken to hear such a high opening bid for herself. She thinks there is no way her comrades could have that much money and listens as the auctioneer asks for bids higher than 20 gold. Dahlia panics, protesting that beastmen were supposed to cost only 8 to 9 gold and that raising the price by another 10 is outrageous. Then Marin calmly raises paddle 21 to enter the bidding. The auctioneer asks his maximum bid and reminds him of the house limits of 30 gold for humans and 50 for other races. Marin replies that his bid is 50 gold, shocking Dahlia and the hall. Dahlia exclaims that he only had 10 gold left, but Marin clarifies he never said that was all the money he possessed. The master shouts that he never trusted the supposed master who sold the rare earrings from the start, realizing he has been outplayed. The auctioneer nervously confirms that Marin really said 50 gold, the maximum allowed for non-humans. Onlookers mutter that the adventurers clearly do not look rich enough to pay such a huge sum and suspect they plan to delay payment. The auctioneer reminds everyone that bids must match amounts that can be paid immediately, and urges bidders to offer only what they can actually afford. The elf Rin is startled as Marin abruptly walks away and demands to know where he is going. Marin strides toward the auction stage while someone anxiously protests that he cannot come up there. The beastkin girl recognizes the armored man approaching her and hesitantly calls him Marin. Staring at him in disbelief, she wonders what on earth he is planning. Marin dramatically raises his hand and produces a dazzling shower of gold coins. He calmly asks if the huge amount of money he has offered is satisfactory. The greedy auctioneer is shocked that a low-rank adventurer could pay 50 gold for a slave. The beastkin girl, kneeling before the pile of coins, realizes she has just been sold for an enormous price. As the auctioneer confirms the sale, she looks up in stunned relief. Night falls over the town as the events at the inn settle. 2 young beastin siblings happily run to their big sister, calling out to her. She hugs them tightly, relieved they are safe, and tells them they are finally free people. Later, Rin angrily asks Marin why he never mentioned having so much money, and he replies that no one asked. Rin admits he is glad everything worked out, while the beastkin girl joyfully cuddles her brothers. Marin politely calls out to her, wanting to speak. She shyly thanks Marin, saying he saved both her and her little brothers and she has no idea how to repay him. The younger siblings sniff the air curiously as a delicious aroma reaches them. They excitedly shout that they smell meat, and Marin offers to take everyone to eat if they are hungry. The beastkin girl worries about how to repay Marin and asks Rin what they should do. Rin suggests Marin helped because he considers them comrades, and says repaying him by continuing to work together is enough, which she eagerly accepts. She remarks that Marin smells of tasty, oily food and asks if Rin ate something good for lunch. Rin suddenly realizes what that smell must be and panics. Seeing Marin about to serve the fried food, Rin screams at him not to give it to the children. Marin turns, confused, asking what is wrong while holding the plate of fried pieces. One of the kids opens wide as Marin feeds them a bite of the fried morsel. The siblings ecstatically declare the fried food the most delicious thing they have ever eaten. Rin freaks out, demanding to know what Marin is feeding the children, while the Beastkin girl is initially puzzled. She identifies it as fried chicken and confidently says that much is fine for Beastkin kids with strong digestion. She adds that since they are growing, they can eat anything that is not iron or a monster. Growing suspicious, she suddenly asks Marin what meat he actually used, and he answers that it is harpy. Horrified, she yells at him for giving monster meat to her precious siblings. She frantically tries to stop them from eating more, calling the food filthy, while they protest that it tastes too good. The kids beg for more fried harpy even as she tries to refuse them. She smells the food herself and hesitates. Determined, she sits down with a forkful of harpy meat, preparing to eat it instead. She resolves to eat it, and collapse dramatically so the children will be scared and refuse any more. Fighting her revulsion toward eating a disgusting monster, she steels herself, saying she will endure it for her siblings. She brings the meat to her mouth, planning to pretend she has been poisoned no matter how it tastes. The moment she bites down, her eyes widen in surprise. She starts trembling as Rin worries she has been poisoned like Marin was once. Rin nervously asks if she really has been poisoned, but she is speechless. Overwhelmed, she instead exclaims how incredibly delicious it is and struggles not to share, while the kids insist they should get some too. As she keeps eating, she marvels that it is the most tender and savory meat she has ever tasted and cannot believe it is harpy. Marin quietly asks if it tastes good, which flusters her. Embarrassed, she loudly lies that it is not delicious, yet vows revenge on Rin for making her eat harpy. Rin remembers something and calls out to Dahlia. He then demands that, until Marin repays the 70 gold he advanced, Marin must give him 90% of his quest rewards, which shocks Marin. Rin explodes, accusing Marin of being heartless and trying to starve him, while Marin dryly says that if such a thing would kill him, then he should just die. With the matter settled, Rin asks Marin to deliver the special reward he promised. That night they head into the forest so Rin can perform the reward ritual. Rin explains that the village is too crowded and not favored by spirits, and asks how Marin could possibly grant an attribute blessing. Rin tells him to remove his gloves so some skin is exposed, then begins explaining how spirits' blessings work. Marin uncovers his hand as Rin narrates that elves who conceive in the forest are born with a spirit's blessing. He continues that such children receive an innate attribute power from a spirit that bonds with them at birth. The bonded spirit acts as a lifetime guardian, and by asking that spirit, an elf can grant a similar blessing to someone else. Rin clarifies that bestowing such a blessing, even by one's own spirit, is a once-in-a-lifetime act, usually reserved for a companion, child, or great benefactor. Marin is surprised it is so precious, but Rin says Marin has twice fulfilled his lifelong wish of saving comrades from human oppression, and so is worthy. Rin calls upon his wind spirit Sylph to answer him. Marin feels a powerful gust of wind swirl around him. He watches the wind encircle his bare hand and wonders if this invisible force is the spirit's power. Rin describes how humans once abducted elves not just for beauty but to steal this blessing, and how many elves resisted despite humiliation. He says that after slavery was abolished, many freed elves later committed suicide from their trauma. As the green light gathers in his hands, Rin says elves remember too well. Even those who returned home were tormented until they chose death. He confesses his hatred for the humans responsible, and says he would kill them all if he could. Rin channels more of the spirit's power while speaking. The wind spirit's energy pours from his hands in a brilliant stream. Marin is engulfed in the surging wind as the blessing is transferred. A system notice appears stating that Marin has gained the wind attribute via Sylph, adding wind to his existing fire affinity, which he confirms in surprise. Rin warns that despite helping Marin, he still despises humans as vile, selfish creatures. He stresses that granting one blessing does not mean he has forgiven Marin for being human. The next day, at the Hexam Guild, a new chapter of their adventures begins. Inside, Rin and the Beastkin girl cheerfully call Marin over when he arrives. Rin explains they finally found another Beastkin babysitter for her younger siblings so the party can take quests again. She excitedly declares it is her first day as a free citizen and she is highly motivated. Proudly, she shows off a quest for a crystal cave monster called Mad Dorth. Rin is alarmed by the choice, but she insists it is safe for their C-rank party. Marin recalls Mad Dorth as a slime-like mud monster and curiously wonders if it might be edible. Rin nervously suspects Marin is thinking of eating the mud monster, while the Beastkin girl focuses on getting a carriage ready. As they walk through town, Rin asks if she has researched the other monsters in the crystal cave, and she says she will explain on the carriage. She also plans to find a proper home for her siblings after this quest, not wanting them to keep living in an inn. When they reach the pickup point, they are surprised to see an unusually luxurious carriage waiting. Rin comments that such a carriage must be expensive, and the Beastkin girl insists she never ordered something like that. Armed escorts surround them as a guard addresses Rin, raising suspicion. A familiar merchant steps out of the carriage, saying he is glad he arrived in time. Hearing his voice, the Beastkin girl trembles, recognizing her former master. The cruel merchant reveals himself, and she calls him her old master. Marin bluntly asks why he is here when their deal for the slaves was already concluded. The merchant claims he realized after selling her how much he missed her and now appreciates her value. He says he has come with a proposal to renegotiate and trade the slave back. Marin is silently taken aback by the outrageous suggestion. Rin furiously rejects the idea of renegotiation, calling it filthy work after everything was already settled. The merchant dismisses Rin and smugly addresses the Beastkin girl as if she is still his, while she growls at him. He warns that his 2 heavily armed bodyguards are level 80 or higher, implying they can crush the party if angered. Marin is formally addressed, prompting him to listen as the merchant makes his offer. The merchant offers 100 gold to buy the girl back, but Marin immediately refuses. The merchant is stunned that his money was rejected so easily. He arrogantly questions whether the price is too low, saying the slave is not worth more, which enrages Rin. Even when the merchant raises his offer to 150 and then 160 gold, Marin keeps refusing. The Beastkin girl defiantly shouts that Marin would not sell her even for 100 million gold. Snarling, the merchant asks if they realize how much a beastman's slave is worth and raises the offer to 200 gold. Gold signs dance in Marin's imagination as he briefly thinks the amount is impressive, earning Rin's furious scolding before he insists he was joking. Marin points out that the slave documents were destroyed on the spot and her emancipation was agreed upon, so she is no longer a slave at all. He declares he has no further dealings with the merchant, and warns that if the man ever mistreats her again, he will not overlook it. The merchant grits his teeth, calling them pathetic fools drunk on camaraderie. He says he had hoped to solve things with money but now reveals a more malicious intent. He sneers that he has no intention of giving up the pleasure of tormenting his former beastkin slave. Before he can act, he is suddenly smashed in the face, blood spraying as he is struck. The beastkin girl has knocked him down, saying she could not stand quietly listening to his cruelty any longer. Looming over him with dark aura, she declares she is no longer his slave and insults him. One of the elite guards charges, outraged that a former slave would dare act so boldly. Marin instantly appears behind the guard, scolding him for drawing his sword so recklessly. With overwhelming strength, Marin slams the armored guard into the ground. The second guard attacks in rage, eager for a fight. Marin casually picks up a stone, preparing another move. Channeling power into the stone, he leaps and drives the guard weapon first into the ground with explosive force. The shocked guard crashes down, completely defeated. Bloodied and stunned, he can only gasp in disbelief. The merchant watches in horror, unable to believe 2 level 80 guards were beaten so easily. Trembling, he asks Marin what level he is, and Marin calmly answers that he is around level 95. Rin and the beastkin girl are astonished to learn Marin is that strong. The beastkin girl grabs her ex-master by the hair, and notes that their business here is over. His agonized screaming echoes through the courtyard. Rin reminds her they will miss their carriage if they delay and suggests wrapping things up. She cheerfully agrees, saying she has just finished teaching the merchant a lesson as he lies moaning on the ground. Stretching contentedly, she says punching him felt great and tells him never to show his face again, while Rin mutters about filthy humans. The battered merchant rages that mere adventurers will regret this once he tells his merchant group. Marin, bathed in a menacing red light, approaches and mentions that rumors of him killing people have already made it hard to find parties. He coldly thinks it would be easier to crush one merchant group than lose his hard-won companions and warns the man not to touch them. Marin then stomps on the carriage wheel. The luxury carriage explodes into pieces behind the terrified merchant. Marin states this destruction is only a warning and tells the man to remember his place. Later, deep inside the crystal cave, the party explores among glowing crystals. Surrounded by mad dwarf mud monsters, Rin shouts that they are weak to fire, prompting the beastkin girl to eagerly prepare a fire skill. She unleashes a huge yet uncontrolled fire tornado spell, astonishing Marin. Rin scolds her for using such an unrefined skill, while she laughs that captivity left her no time to practice. Afterward, Marin cooks the mad dwarf into a purple mush and examines it. Concerned, his friends ask if he can really eat that since they cannot heal him if he collapses again. Marin notes the food has no smell and decides to taste it anyway. He reasons that since it lacks an earthy smell, it might taste different from actual dirt, and then takes a bite. Disappointed, he finds it tastes like gum-flavored modeling clay with awful texture and concludes not every monster meat is tasty. Resigned, he decides to stick with the delicious harpy fried chicken and resumes checking his status screen when the beastkin girl approaches to talk. She finally thanks him properly for saving her family, and vows to earn money to repay him someday. Marin replies that she needs the money for her brothers and does not owe him anything despite the large sum he spent. Curious, she then asks Rin how he managed to prepare so much gold and worries he might have resorted to dangerous poaching. Marin interjects that it was nothing like that. He admits he sold a keepsake from an old comrade that he had long held onto but ultimately decided to part with. Upset, she asks why he would sell something so important, fearing it is irreplaceable even if she repays the money. Marin simply says it is fine. He tells them they are his comrades now and that if they want to repay him, they should just keep adventuring together with him. Touched, Rin and the beastkin girl confirm that staying in his party is enough, grateful to have him as their leader. The cat girl resolves to stop sulking and do her best as leader again, then asks Dahlia about his long acquaintance and blessing on Marin. Dahlia explains he has known Marin about as long as he has known her and that his blessing was essentially the price of a contract. The cat girl teases Dahlia for caring about a human whose face he has never seen and then turns to Marin, wondering why he always keeps his helmet on. Marin says he has personal reasons for staying covered and, puzzled by her behavior, asks what she is doing as she eagerly speculates about what is hidden under his helmet. When she guesses he is hiding a big scar, Dahlia scolds her for prying into something a comrade does not want to show, and she awkwardly insists scars are badges of honor to adventurers. Dahlia points out that Marin hides his identity too much, arguing that interest from others means they want to get along, and that he should open up at least a little. Marin falls silent, clearly conflicted behind his helmet. Suddenly something strikes his helmet with a sharp impact. The blow smashes the nearby crystal wall, sending debris flying as Marin is hurled backward. Dahlia and the cat girl spin around in shock at the attack. They see a lizard-like monster emerging from the crystals, identified as a crystal tail. The monster's horn is abruptly shattered and blood spurts as it is struck. The cat girl dives in and savagely finishes off the crystal tail. She rushes back, worried about Marin, and moves to lift his head to check his condition. Dahlia looks at Marin's exposed eye area and reacts in horror. He exclaims that crystal shards are lodged in Marin's eye as blood drips from the helmet. Marin insists his vision is fine and that the shard only grazed him, but Dahlia protests that with that much blood his eye cannot be okay. The cat girl orders Marin to remove his helmet immediately so they can check and treat the wound, declaring the injury more important than anything else. She adds that if his eye is really damaged they must return to the temple right away. Marin flashes back to panicked adventurers once calling him a monster and begging for their lives. In the memory, one of his former companions yells for everyone to run. Back in the present, Marin recoils and shouts at Dahlia and the cat girl not to touch him. Dahlia, taken aback, asks if Marin really hates showing his face that much. Marin, clutching his helmet in distress, quietly admits that he does. His inner thoughts scream for them not to look and to stop, consumed by fear of being seen. Dahlia gently tells Marin they know he is reluctant but insists they must inspect the injury properly in order to treat it. Marin repeats that he is fine, that the wound truly just grazed him, and that his eyesight is normal. Dahlia worries but Marin reminds him of his high level and says a mere level 30 crystal tail cannot inflict fatal damage. Marin concludes that he is really okay and urges them to continue the subjugation mission. The cat girl and Dahlia trade uneasy looks but accept his decision. Dahlia agrees as long as Marin does not overexert himself, while the cat girl heals him and makes him promise to speak up immediately if it worsens, apologizing for trying to take off his helmet. Marin apologizes as well for snapping at them, and they mutually reconcile. Later at the guild, they report that the subjugation request for the Mad Dwarf has been successfully completed and are praised for their work. At the counter, the receptionist senses an odd atmosphere and asks if anything happened, but the cat girl nervously denies it while Marin and Dahlia stand by. She privately checks again if Marin is sure about not visiting the temple, and he confirms with a nod. Dahlia suggests they end the day and rest so they can monitor Marin's condition. As the cat girl agrees and proposes returning to the inn, a guild messenger bursts in shouting about an emergency. The breathless runner is questioned about the situation and stammers that something serious has occurred. She reports that a new open-type dungeon has appeared in the forest between Adurama and the capital and is about to reveal its name. Marin hears that the dungeon is called the Dryad's Flower Garden and mutters the word Dryad to himself. Dahlia is shocked a dungeon appeared so suddenly, but the cat girl reasons that with many parties around the guild will handle it, and urges returning to the inn. Marin interrupts, declaring that their party will also participate in the subjugation, prompting surprise from his companions, who question whether he should fight without resting. He answers that he is fine and, more importantly, has something on his mind that he wants to confirm. The scene shifts to the forested region where the new dungeon lies. Numerous adventurer parties gather at the dungeon entrance as a leader calls them over to begin a briefing for the conquest. Two adventurers gossip that the first explorer of this dungeon was defeated by the boss and is now at the temple, and they hear rumors that there are two Dryad bosses. Marin recalls that Dryads are plant-type monsters and excitedly imagines them as potential ingredients, wondering if they might be suited for salad or pickles. The cat girl anxiously tells Dahlia that if Marin decides to feast in front of this many people their party's reputation will be ruined, and Dahlia jokes that in that case they should pretend not to know him. Marin, thinking about Dahlia being vegetarian, resolves to finally cook something for him too and vows to prepare a special dish, which Dahlia unenthusiastically rejects as unnecessary concern. During the briefing, they are told that the dungeon indeed has two bosses. The commander notes it will be tough with their current numbers but reassures everyone that there is no need to worry. A flamboyant elf, Anchorman de Reisrick, boasting the provisional title of hero, introduces himself and claims their operation is safe with him present. Dahlia reacts skeptically as Marin wonders about the term hero, and Dahlia is stunned that Marin, who lived in a forest, knows even less about the world than he does. Dahlia explains that hero is the collective term for those with the provisional hero title, called heroes out of respect, though their appearance also terrifies some people. He continues that the existence of heroes is said to foreshadow the return of the Demon King. The narration adds that the gathering of monsters around heroes is believed to predict the resurrection of the Demon King, king of all monsters. Dahlia says nations and guilds give heroes special treatment in hopes they will be useful against the Demon King and that heroes are widely admired, then invokes appraisal to check Anchorman's status. The appraisal reveals Anchorman as a high-level warrior with numerous Dungeon Breaker titles and the Provisional Hero title, impressing Dahlia with how many first clear achievements he has. Dahlia then mentions that he once saw a hero long ago, and adds that of the 5 heroes discovered so far, the second one has already been killed. He recalls that the 4th hero was also slain by a monster, leaving only 3 heroes alive. Marin silently reacts to this explanation, the implication weighing on him. As they advance into the dungeon, a swarm of large flying wasps attacks and the command is given to keep them from reaching the main force. Dahlia draws his bow and begins shooting the wasps with wind-imbued arrows. His arrows slice through multiple wasps, splattering green fluid as they fall. The catgirl punches and slashes through the wasps at close range, crushing them. Marin joins in, cutting down more wasps with sweeping sword strikes. Other adventurers watch Havoc's teamwork and admit the party is far more capable than they expected from the name. The catgirl's ears twitch happily at the overheard praise. She smugly comments that their party name seems to be spreading, while Dahlia tells her it is not a compliment and to stay focused. Using a map explanation, the plan is laid out. While the hero and a B-rank party tackle the 2 bosses one at a time, Havoc's role is to block other monsters from reaching them. One of the dried bosses appears, and its stats are displayed as a powerful level 5/8 monster. The B-rank party fighting it worries they are losing face, struggling against the Dryad. They decide to keep the Dryad occupied until Anchorman defeats the other boss. Anchorman engages his own Dryad, charging with a glowing sword to prove his strength. Confident, he considers finishing his opponent right away. He closes in on the Dryad, preparing a decisive strike. Anchorman unleashes a flurry of powerful slashes that visibly damage and stagger the Dryad. Observers marvel that the hero can defeat such a strong boss alone. Anchorman basks in their praise for his impressive strength. The remaining Dryad reacts violently, radiating power, as he thinks that defeating this last one will finish the job. The B-rank party hears the Dryad's loud cries and wonders if it is reacting out of kinship, but assume that once the hero arrives it will be easy to defeat. Suddenly the ground cracks apart beneath them as something erupts. The enraged Dryad goes berserk, unleashing massive roots and tremors. The B-rank members are grabbed by vines and panic as they are pulled in. Sensing the swelling power, Marin recognizes the reaction and suspects that this dungeon may require defeating both bosses at the same time. He concludes the mechanism truly demands simultaneous defeat of the 2 bosses, making the current situation extremely dangerous. A new, more terrifying plant monster, the Master of the Dryad's Garden, manifests with level 70 stats, its origin tied to the grief of a Dryad losing its partner. Dahlia demands to know what the monster is, and Marin urgently warns everyone not to approach, telling them to retreat. Anchorman announces that the boss's level has risen to 70 and warns that with the average levels present no one stands a chance. He declares he will buy time while everyone falls back, though one party member cries out to be freed from binding vines. While shouting for support to rescue the trapped ally, Anchorman internally curses their low level and thinks disparagingly of them. He recalls how he secretly obtained advance intel about the dungeon from the Thieves' Guild, including the need to defeat both bosses at once. Anchorman boasts that he intentionally withheld part of that information from the others and blames them for trusting him without verifying the details. Now he prepares to act again, saying, "Now then," as he steadies himself. With theatrical flair, he claims he will end things in true hero fashion and begins casting a light-based technique. Before he can, the boss inflicts a major curse that prevents him from using skills or techniques for 10 minutes. Shocked that the boss has curse abilities he was never warned about, Anchorman panics as vines wrap around him, wondering when he was targeted. The cursed hero is swung violently through the air by the vine restraint. He is then slammed hard into the ground. Anchorman struggles, insisting it is only a single vine and that he just needs to cut it. As he attempts to attack, the boss looms over him and the situation turns dire. Anchorman is overwhelmed and injured, letting out a pained grunt. Seeing this, the adventurers exclaim that even the hero has been defeated and order an immediate retreat, declaring the raid a failure. Marin assesses that at this rate the casualties will be enormous. He watches as the enraged boss chases the fleeing adventurers. Deciding he must intervene, Marin channels powerful swordsmanship and martial arts, wondering how much he should hold back. He charges straight at the towering plant boss, sword glowing with energy. His blade cuts into the Dryad with overwhelming force. The attack continues in a massive arc, cleaving through the boss as Marin dashes past. The battlefield erupts in smoke and debris from the devastating blow. As the dust clears, the Dryad's body is seen sliced apart, while Marin stands ready with his sword. A stunned adventurer realizes Marin has just defeated the level 70 boss with a single strike. Marin, slightly embarrassed, murmurs to his companion Rhea amid the drifting leaves. Looking over the wreckage and felled trees, he admits he had not meant to cause such large-scale destruction. A system message appears awarding Marin the title Dryad's Garden Conqueror, which he notes with a simple reaction. He reflects that this is the very title the hero desperately wanted and his first time obtaining such a coveted achievement, just as Dahlia and the catgirl rush over calling his name. Later, the catgirl cheerfully praises Marin's spectacular feat of blowing away the entire area, while Dahlia teases that he must have wanted to show off his level, and Marin insists that was not his intention. Marin turns as other adventurers approach, awkwardly replying to their attempt to thank him. The B-rank party expresses gratitude for being saved from the chaos and marvels that someone that strong belongs to a mere C-rank party. They also thank Havoc for handling the wasps and are amazed that Marin felled a boss that even defeated the hero, while he modestly says it was not a big deal. Nearby, other adventurers whisper nervously that Marin might be the rumored monster-eating adventurer with the Kinslayer title and question whether he is safe to be around. The cat girl and Dahlia shoot dark, offended looks toward the whisperers. Dahlia coldly asks if humans customarily repay favors with insults while the cat girl, furious at their rudeness toward Marin, advances on them. She threatens them to leave before she tears off their ears, and the shaken adventurers talk about warding off the ominous feeling with salt. Elsewhere, comrades anxiously help the injured anchorman to his feet, asking about his condition. Internally seething, Anchorman fixates on how a C-rank like Marin could defeat the boss with one blow, resents losing the Dungeon Conqueror title, and notes he cannot even read Marin's level with appraisal. He glares and vows that Marin Glace will pay for overshadowing him. Time passes and the scene shifts back to the inn on a calm day. A spiky outer shell is cracked open to reveal what looks like a chestnut being extracted. Marin sits at a table surrounded by empty shells, having painstakingly harvested many chestnuts. He proudly remarks that he has finally removed the insides as he prepares to cook. Admiring the raw chestnuts, he notes their glossy appearance and large size, judging them a good variety. A flashback shows that he collected these chestnuts from a treant monster on the way back from the dungeon, excited to taste nuts harvested from a monster. He explains the first prep step of peeling off the hard outer shell, then carefully removing the thin inner skin by hand. Next he boils the peeled chestnuts in water until they are half cooked. He removes them before they overcook, and, while they boil, prepares another pot with water and sugar. He reduces this mixture over high heat into a shiny syrup and judges it ready. Once the chestnuts are cooked, he transfers them into the syrup. He sautés them while basting with the syrup so they become evenly coated. When they reach the right point, he covers the pot with a lid. He describes how the sauce soaks in as the ingredients cool, instructing to let the chestnuts cool in the pot and repeat this process several times. At last he presents the finished dish Treant Marin Glace, gleaming chestnut sweets arranged on a plate. Delighted with the glossy sugar coating and satisfying size of each piece, Marin anticipates how the monster-derived fruit will taste. He opens his mouth wide and takes a bite of one of the sweets. The flavor shocks him, and he exclaims in surprise. He rapturously analyzes that the multiple syrup coatings intensify the chestnut's sweetness, making it soft, chewy, and as moving as a fine chocolate dessert. Deciding he cannot keep something this delicious to himself, he thinks of sharing it. Dahlia, awakened in the night by the commotion, enters holding a plateful of the chestnut sweets and remarks that Marin is cooking monsters again. Marin argues that because it is fruit even a vegetarian can eat it, while Dahlia insists that is not the point and then wonders where Motar is. The cat girl appears and explains that Motar does not like sweets and her younger brothers are asleep, so they cannot be given any, setting up Marin to share his new dessert mainly with Dahlia. An elf warrior is pressured about eating a shiny monster fruit and reluctantly considers it. Annoyed but moved by the effort put into making it, he decides to eat the fruit just this once. He bites into the small glazed fruit. His eyes widen in shock as the taste hits him. He marvels internally that a monster's fruit could be so sweet, soft, and perfectly matched with rich syrup, wondering how such a monster can taste this good. When asked if it is delicious, he blushes and angrily insists he was only surprised by the sweetness. Still savoring it, he praises its autumn flavor and asks its name, learning it is called Marin Glace. Sitting across from the armored human, he complains about desserts being named after people, then is asked if he likes sweets. He defensively explains that his master trained him to suppress his appetite, and that he even avoided sweet strawberries in his forest home. Remembering his strict master, he says she still serves as captain of the guard in his home forest. As he begins to name his master Rose, the armored man suddenly grabs his hand. Hearing the name Marin and the mention of pink hair, the armored man reacts in surprise. The armored man accurately describes Rose's spear and water attribute, startling Dahlia, who demands to know how he knows this. The armored man asks if they can travel to Dahlia's home forest the next morning. The narration shifts to their arrival at Azura Great Forest on the central continent. The armored man steps into the forest. He stands ready in full gear amid the trees, recalling his past. He remembers once taking a joint request with an elf. That elf, wielding a spear unlike most elves, had been the best friend of his wizard companion long ago. He now realizes in hindsight that this spear-using elf was actually Dahlia's master. As he walks, he recalls repeatedly confirming Rose's identity with Dahlia and worries Rose may not remember him. He suddenly spots a pink-haired elf ahead, and she notices his presence. Rose, the pink-haired elf with a spear, turns to face him. She studies this tall, helmeted human and confirms he is the one who wished to meet her. Rose sternly orders the human to state his name. The armored man starts to say Marin but corrects himself. He gives his old name Charlotte and greets Rose after a long time apart. Rose's lips curl into a faint, nostalgic smile. She bursts into laughter, saying she has not heard the name Charlotte in ages. She cheerfully asks if he has been well and how long it has been, While he is relieved she still remembers him. As he steps forward to answer, something about his movement alarms Rose. A sudden swift motion interrupts, signaling danger. Rose lashes out with her spear at his throat, demanding to know who he really is. She accuses him of impersonating an old acquaintance of hers. The armored man concedes that a person named Charlotte existed 100 years ago, but as a human he should be long dead. Rose, still suspicious, challenges him to prove he is truly Charlotte by recalling what nickname she used for him. He hesitates in silence behind his visor. A flashback shows a younger Charlotte turning down a party's invitation, being addressed as Mr. Charlotte. In that memory, the party praises his shield skill and invites him again to join. Charlotte refuses, but they plead for him to at least come along once. As Charlotte tries to leave, the wizard chases after him. The wizard and an elf insist that if he travels with them he can meet other races, irritating him. The wizard reminds him he wanted to meet non-humans, introducing Rose as his best friend. The wizard proudly presents Charlotte to Rose. Rose thinks humans outside the forest are obsessed with elves and can hardly believe this introduction. Rose and Charlotte shake hands, exchanging names. Rose decides Charlotte's full name is too grandiose and difficult, so she chooses a shorter nickname for him. In the present, Rose remembers she used to call him Charlot and recognizes him. She compares his build and voice with the Charlotte she knew, though he no longer looks like an aged human. Charlotte recalls he was about 15 when they met. He proves his identity by recounting details about Rose's wizard friend, his position, his taste in madeleines, and her many fan letters. Embarrassed, Charlotte stops her from revealing more of his past. Rose watches him closely, reassessing him. She notes that his quiet demeanor and gentle voice are the same, confirming he is the Charlotte she remembers, though she does not know how. Rose finally accepts that he is indeed Charlotte. She tells him to follow her because there is something she wants to confirm. Later, Charlotte's helmeted reflection appears in a cup of tea she serves. In her cabin, Rose apologizes for not having much to offer and says the place is just where she sleeps, while Charlotte assures her he does not mind. Outside, it is shown that she lives alone in a cabin near the forest entrance to manage security more easily. Charlotte reflects that Rose has not aged in 100 years and, while accepting that for an elf, she asks why he will not remove his helmet. He replies that he has his reasons for keeping it on. Rose then asks if he can at least show her his hand, prompting him to pull back his sleeve. Holding his hand, she remarks that he has not aged at all and muses that while she has weathered the years as an elf, his human time seems frozen. Charlotte asks hopefully if her wizard friend Carls might also be living without aging. Rose sadly explains that Carls is dead and that she alone survived their old party. She reasons aloud that since a century has passed, it is natural that the humans she once knew would be gone. She admits she always assumed all of them, including Charlotte, were dead. Rose recounts that she quit adventuring young, returned to the forest, and thereafter heard about them only through occasional letters from Carls. She describes how Carl's letters eventually stopped, and only 20 years later did she learn something terrible had happened. Charlotte narrates that Rose's party Romantia vanished without a trace, and though such disappearances were common among mercenaries, this one was widely talked about. Their party's sudden loss, despite their high skill, became a major topic, and Charlotte had refused to believe it at first. Rose says that, over time, she gave up hope of hearing from them again. She admits that seeing Charlotte alive now leaves her more stunned than happy and bluntly asks how he has remained unchanged for 100 years. Charlotte prepares to answer, first asking if she remembers their final quest together, and the rare item he acquired. He reminds her it was the special reward from their last job. He specifies it was a skill book called Arachnophobia, obtained after defeating the Spider Queen Regina Urania. A younger armored Charlotte is shown holding his sword after that victory. Rose confirms she remembers, recalling that she used her appraisal skill on the book for him. Charlotte states that this very skill book is the reason he is still alive. He adds that it is also the reason his comrades died, foreshadowing his story. The scene shifts back in time to a peaceful forest sky before the tragedy. The flashback begins with Charlotte's party being charged by monstrous, red-eyed goblins. The group fights back, killing the goblins with spear strikes. The archer and mage panic that these foes are far more monstrous than the goblins they were hired to defeat. Carl shouts for calm, saying they can handle these enemies and ordering Charlotte to hold the front line. Charlotte blocks a furious assault with his shield. The archer calls out that she has a shot and tells Charlotte to keep the monsters pinned. She unleashes a glowing rain of arrows that rains down on the goblins. Carls and the mage coordinate, announcing that their preparations are also ready. The mage casts a massive fire spell that engulfs the goblins in flames. Afterward, Carls questions whether Charlotte has ever seen goblins mutated in this way, and Charlotte answers no. The archer complains they were misinformed about the job, while Carl suggests they can claim extra pay. Carls then decides the mission is too dangerous. He suggests they take a corpse as proof and withdraw. The mage looks uneasy as he contemplates the severity of the situation. Suddenly a cloaked figure appears, lamenting the brutal loss of the creatures he had painstakingly created. The archer challenges the rogue stranger, warning him that the area is under a subjugation request. The party forms up with Charlotte in front, shields raised, while Carls calls his name. Sensing danger, Carls tells the others to prepare for the worst. Carls formally identifies them as the adventurers assigned to this mission and demands the stranger identify himself. The hooded figure casually remarks that time passes differently for him and complains that they destroyed his test subjects made while his master was away. The archer realizes the twisted goblins were experiments and worries they are facing more than they can handle. The stranger reveals he was in the middle of a sacred ritual. Removing his hood, he reveals a scaled, reptilian face and scolds mere humans for interrupting him. Charlotte wonders if such a race even exists, feeling that something is very wrong. He uses appraisal and discovers the figure is of the dragon race, which shocks him. In an instant, Charlotte is blasted back by overwhelming force, shield shattered. The others watch in horror as an explosion marks the impact. Charlotte is left bloodied and impaled against a tree, his companions crying out his name. The dragon mocks humans for spying on his ritual and decides to use them as sacrifices. The party leader orders everyone to battle stations and tells the mage Damien to heal Charlotte. The dragon feigns politeness, saying even insignificant beings deserve to know who kills them. He proudly introduces himself as the Gold Dragon, famed for wisdom even among dragons. The mage panics at the revelation that this enemy is a dragon, while the archer urges him to stay focused. Damien realizes Charlotte was felled in a single blow, and that this is a genuine dragon. He plans a retreat by blinding it with magic. Before he can act, a bloody claw erupts from his chest. The dragon appears behind Damien, mocking him for wielding magic as a human while Rose screams his name. The archer fires in fury, calling the dragon a monster. In a blur, the dragon effortlessly kills her as well. Carls narrates that in the chaos he could neither see nor hear clearly. He recognizes fully that they are facing a true dragon. Rose, horrified, thinks they will all be slaughtered and wonders what to do. She notes that Damien and Carls are miraculously still alive. She reasons that with Damien's wide area healing magic they can still save everyone, but she needs to buy time, deciding she must draw the dragon's attention. She confronts the dragon, demanding to know why it is here and what it wants. The dragon replies that his sole wish is to resurrect the Demon King. He says that, as the wise gold dragon, he realized he must exterminate humanity to purify the world. He rants that humanity is filth that must be wiped out entirely. He explains that someone else once shared this goal and devoted their life to fighting humans, namely the Demon King. He says he is performing a ritual to grant that person's wish and revive the Demon King. The dragon confesses he fell in love with that powerful individual while preparing the ritual and intends to become the Demon King's consort. He declares proudly that he is the gold dragon enamored with the Demon King. Announcing his new title as the love-crazed mad dragon Silvator, he fully reveals his mania. Carls privately thinks the dragon is insane but uses the rambling monologue to buy time. He nearly finishes preparing a wide-area healing spell and plans to flee with everyone once it activates. Just as he steels himself, the dragon casually says he is busy for that glorious future and has no time to play with them. A spike of earth or power suddenly impales Damien mid-cast. Damien is lifted and skewered, the dragon mocking him for thinking such tricks would go unnoticed. Rose charges in desperation, screaming as she attacks the dragon from behind. The dragon simply gestures with a bloody finger, channeling ominous magic. Purple power slams Rose into the ground, devastating her. Hovering with demonic wings, the dragon laughs that they look like insects and muses about using them as new test subjects. A gravely wounded Charlotte realizes they cannot win in a direct fight, and that they are doomed at this rate. He recalls the arachnophobia skill book and thinks that using that skill might buy enough time for everyone to escape. He clenches his fist, resolving to act. Activating arachnophobia, he begins to invoke the terrible skill. A system-like message announces that the assimilation debuff has activated. Another message then says the assimilation debuff has been dispelled, as a severed armored arm appears. The bloody arm falls to the ground amid spreading spiderwebs, and someone gasps in shock. In the present, a long-haired person under the moon suddenly awakens in a forest, confused and asking what has just happened. A skull rolls across a battlefield littered with bones. A white-haired spider-woman stares in shocked silence. The spider-woman realizes she is surrounded by human corpses, including a half-eaten knight. The surviving knight gasps, unable to comprehend the carnage around him. The Spider-Woman is startled as a glowing status window appears before her. The system informs her she has gained the title Kinslayer, leaving her stunned. She wonders in horror if she really slaughtered all the humans here herself. One of her spider legs taps a severed arm wearing a glowing bracelet. A status window explains the bracelet is a rare item that removes status abnormalities once per hour, which she recognizes as a status-curing accessory. Thinking this through, she realizes something important about her own condition. Reading her own skill description, she learns her transformation into Arachne causes her mind to assimilate with the monster's instincts, and she deduces the bracelet likely broke that assimilation and woke her. Checking a corpse's status, she sees it belonged to a powerful holy knight hero. She looks down at the maimed hero's body. She panics at the realization that she has killed a hero, humanity's hope. Remembering last fighting a dragon, she desperately wonders what happened to her comrades. A close-up shows her eye widen as a new thought hits her. Her spider legs approach a fallen staff with a blue crystal. A flashback shows her monstrous spider form discovering that same crystal among the battlefield remains. In the present, an elf tells a helmeted man that when she finally came to her senses, 100 years had already passed and many comrades, including his friend Carlos, were long dead. The man, shaking, confesses he does not know how many he killed and that he carried the secret alone for a century. The elf gently says she knows that must have been extremely hard on him. She reassures him he fought the dragon and used an unknown skill to protect his comrades, and no one could blame him for failing despite risking his life. She apologizes for digging up painful memories, while he says her words help him finally understand why he is still alive. She recalls he once asked why she never removes her helmet and begins to explain, referencing hazy memories from the last 100 years. In a flashback, she remembers people calling her a monster when they saw her transformed face, and after a century as a monster she believed her real face had become monstrous too. After waking and canceling the transformation, she considered going to the capital temple for purification, just in case. However, she admits she was too afraid to show anyone her face without checking it herself first. The elf asks if she has told this story to her younger brother Dahlia, and she answers no. She fears that if her comrades see her hideous face, her relationship with them will end. The elf advises that instead of revealing herself to the world, she should first show her face to her trusted comrades. He explains that what truly frightens her is not her appearance but others' reactions, and that gaining her comrades' acceptance will help her accept herself. She squeezes her hands together nervously, admitting she still does not completely trust them. He reminds her they are her comrades and implies she must eventually trust them. Smiling, he tells her that one day she will have to trust them fully, just as the two of them trust each other now. After a pause, she quietly resolves that she will try. He approves of that resolve with a gentle smile. He then asks why she uses the name Maham when Dahlia introduced her that way. She sheepishly reveals she took the name from a jar of chestnuts called Marin Glace. In another flashback, when a villager asked his name, he nervously answered Marin Glace. The elf laughs, and she explains she changed her name, fearing her real one might be on a wanted list. Curious, he asks how she has lived since awakening. She recounts how, with her old mercenary group gone, she became an adventurer, met the beastman Emotar and Dahlia, and formed a new party. The elf notes that over the last 100 years she has become more cheerful, proving even elves change with time. They shake hands and promise to meet again sooner next time. They part ways in the forest, the elf calling her Maham as he waves goodbye. Watching him leave, she reflects that while he claims to believe in his comrades, they already believe in him even more. As she walks away, the narration says the rest is now up to Marin. She wonders if someday she will be able to show her true face to Dahlia and Emotar. Looking at the sunset, she muses about change over time and whether she herself can change. Night falls over a quiet town. At an inn, Emotar furiously punches the table, ranting that the current hero is unbearably annoying. Marin and Dahlia return, asking why there is such a commotion. Emotar complains that the hero took all the quests she wanted from the guild board that morning. She continues that he falsely accused her of breaking guild rules until she proved him wrong. In flashback, the arrogant hero smugly grabs all the quest sheets before she can take them. She recalls how he talked down to her about rules, so she rubbed the evidence in his face. The hero then pretended it was just a harmless mistake, playing it off with a sparkling smile. Emotar rages that she wants to beat him up for being human and for his petty, despicable attitude. Dahlia adds that instead of doing important work in the capital, the hero keeps following them to pick childish fights that skirt guild violations. Emotar thinks the hero is looking down on Marin, and Marin internally agrees he acts absurdly childish. Dahlia notes their party is not the only one being hassled and that the hero is a strange person in general. Hearing all this, Marin is troubled by the idea of a hero bullying others. He then notices Beastman children sneaking away, puzzled. Emotar yells for Marin to catch the kids as they run off eating the roasted chestnuts. The children praise how sweet and delicious the chestnuts are, more than corn, while Marin watches in the background. Emotar chases them, scolding them for eating something dirty while they insist it tastes good and they want more. Dahlia decides the pestering hero likely will not linger forever and they should just endure it, grumbling that weirdos always become heroes. Marin shyly asks about the story Dahlia once told regarding the hero who died, clarifying he means the one supposedly killed by a monster. Marin corrects him, saying he means the second hero who was killed. Dahlia speculates that the killer was actually the infamous first hero, whose personality seems capable of such an act. He quickly corrects himself, judging that although the first hero is childish, he lacks the nerve for outright murder. Dahlia recalls the first hero's petty revenge antics, and how immature they look. He then recounts that the second hero died because of a dungeon mishap, though the fallen hero himself had not seemed weak. Dahlia admits the official story may be false, and hints there is a rumor about the real killer. He tells Marin that a rumor claims someone else was responsible. He reveals the rumor that the one who killed the second hero was actually the third hero. A flashback shows the second hero's body on a palace floor. A cloaked figure with glowing eyes stands over the corpse, identified as the terrifying third hero. Marin is shocked by the idea of one hero killing another, while the narration says the rumor persisted because there were reasons to suspect it. On the day the second hero died, a massive lightning strike hit the capital. Yet the sky had been perfectly clear, leading people to suspect the lightning was magically created. Notably, the third hero specialized in lightning magic. The third hero is shown wielding lightning, and his reputation is described as that of a dangerous lunatic who zaps anyone who bothers him. Because of that temperament he is feared and avoided. the capital officially blamed assassins for the second hero's death, but many believe the third hero did it and that authorities hushed it up. Dahlia explains most people think the second hero died not in battle but at the third hero's hands, and that the kingdom may have covered it up out of fear. Emotar snarls that she has never met a decent hero and vows to rip out the first hero's hair if she meets him again, but Dahlia warns attacking a hero would have serious national consequences. Reflecting on the hero's fixation with him, Marin remembers that this hero possesses many dungeon first clear titles. The hero's status window is shown filled with numerous dungeon first clear and hero titles, and Marin wonders if the man thinks his own title was stolen. Dahlia explains a theory that becoming a hero requires having at least one dungeon first clear title, something all past heroes shared. Emotar concludes that the current hero is hogging first clear records to prevent new hero candidates like Marin from emerging. Dahlia agrees that the hero probably resents Marin for taking the Dryad's Garden first clear title and now harasses their entire party over it. Marin, confused, questions why increasing the number of hero candidates would be bad and wonders if the man is simply overproud of the title. Meanwhile, the Beastman kids eye the chestnut bull again as someone off-screen shrugs that the hero's motives are unknowable. Emotar catches them reaching for more and yells that she had forbidden it. Marin falls silent, lost in thought. He recalls Rose's advice that someday he will need to trust his comrades just as he trusts her now. The narration notes that no secret lasts forever and hints a day will come when the truth must be revealed, while Emotar plays boisterously with the children. The narration continues that Marin will one day have to tell the truth, while Dahlia sits nearby in quiet contemplation. Marin touches his helmet, wondering if his comrades will still accept him even if his hidden face is monstrous. Looking up at the night sky, he admits to Rose in his thoughts that he does not know the answer. Elsewhere, adventurers explore a dim stone dungeon hall. Inside, Emotar is suddenly struck by a thorny mutant slime, whose status window describes its elastic, spiked attacks. Dahlia rushes in with his bow, realizing too late that he misjudged the slime as a weaker type. Marin enchants his sword with flame to help combat the mutant slime. He charges forward, wreathed in fire. Together they fight the strange, powerful slime, and Dahlia worries its mutation may signal the Demon King's return. Marin fears that if the Demon King truly resurfaces they might again face the same dragon, and wonders how he should act if a similar crisis occurs. He compares his current, weaker companions to his powerful old party and resolves that if such a situation happens again, he will make a different choice. He shoves Dahlia out of harm's way, shouting for him to run. Marin takes the slime's spiked hit himself, blood spraying as pain shocks him. Dahlia urgently shouts instructions for Marin and Emotar to act, telling Emotar to move if she does not want to be burned. Emotar gathers fiery magic in her hand, readying a large spell. She unleashes a massive explosion that engulfs the mutant slime. Afterward, she checks if everyone is unharmed while peeling slime residue off her shoulder. Dahlia scolds her for spacing out thinking about eating slimes, while Marin insists that was not the issue. Marin notices something and reacts in alarm. He sees Dahlia's arm bleeding and calls it out, but Dahlia brushes it off as a minor graze. Marin clenches his fist, blaming himself for Dahlia's wound and asking why Dahlia protected him. Dahlia, being healed by Emotar, seems puzzled why Marin is suddenly questioning that act. Marin argues that in a dungeon of this level he himself would not be injured and, as the shield soldier, standing in front is his role, so why did the archer step in? When Dahlia demands to know why, Marin evasively says it was just a feeling. Dahlia finally answers that he moved on instinct because Marin is his comrade, human or not. Emotar teasingly remarks that Dahlia is being tsundere, and he snaps at her to stop talking and finish healing. Marin again falls into thoughtful silence. Later, their footsteps echo as they leave the dungeon. Emotar whispers to Dahlia that Marin has been acting strange since meeting Rose and even apologized in the dungeon without excuses. In another flashback to the fight, Marin apologizes for causing Dahlia's injury and promises to stay focused. On the forest path, Emotar nervously asks Marin if something happened, but he is interrupted. Dahlia suddenly hears a monster's approach, recognizing the distinctive sound. Flashback. Soldiers battle a massive shadowy beast. One knight is slashed and cries out in pain. The monstrous shadow wolf towers over the troops, prompting frantic orders to retreat while soldiers question why such a powerful monster is here. A knight fears their carriage will be destroyed if reinforcements do not arrive soon. The shadow monster surges forward, wreathed in dark energy. A wounded knight begs for help as he lies bleeding. The beast charges him just as a powerful attack slices across its body. The beast howls as its flaming body is violently torn apart. The soldiers gape in disbelief at what just happened. Dahlia taunts the monster to draw its attention away from the men. Emotar moves in, charging a golden punch against the dark creature. She then slams a finishing blow down while Marin yells for her to end it. The beast's form blows apart, surprising Emotar. She is nearly swallowed by the exploding aura as it dissipates. Marin steps in and cleaves the remaining energy with a decisive sword strike. The kneeling knight thanks his savior, and wonders who could defeat such a strong monster so easily. Marin awkwardly accepts the thanks. A relieved dwarf merchant thanks Marin for saving them, and Marin realizes the client is a dwarf. Dahlia and Emotar also arrive, surprised that Lin helped humans voluntarily, while she questions why they are helping humans at all. A pompous knight scolds the dwarf for stepping out of the carriage, boasting about whose path is being blocked while the dwarf apologizes. Emotar and Dahlia, realizing the dwarf is nobility, hurriedly show respect, and he asks if they are the party that saved him. Marin, confused by everyone's reactions, asks what is going on and who this dwarf actually is. Emotar and Dahlia angrily tell him to watch his mouth, revealing that the dwarf he casually addressed is an extremely important person. The armored gnome dismisses differences in circumstances as unimportant. She introduces herself as Afalura Gnome, princess of the dwarf kingdom and master of gold. Night falls over the illuminated tower housing the guild. Two adventurers realize the girl they met is actually the dwarf princess and are warned to mind their words. A dwarf elder confirms he knew from the start she was non-human, evident from her distinct build. The elf bluntly states he would never have saved a human anyway. Their cat and elf comrades recall how his hatred of humans drove him to charge recklessly. The elf asks where Immortal is and learns she, as party leader, went to report to the guild. They imagine Immortal overwhelmed by paperwork because the guild takes the princess's case very seriously. The elf and armored man admit the princess looked like an ordinary child to them despite her status. The dwarf elder angrily defends Lady Gnome, but she laughs and says she is used to being mistaken for a child. The knight learns Lady Afalura is actually a married adult with children, surprising him. The dwarf elder thanks the party, saying their actions prevented the incident from worsening. He's relieved the city guards were unharmed, since someone important would have worried greatly. A guild worker returns, announcing that all procedures for confirming the incident are complete. Immortal and the princess are told they're free to leave now. Lady Gnome asks the elf and knight to tell her their names so she can remember her saviors. They give their names, Dahlia and Marin Glace, and she vows never to forget them. A guild staffer arrives to escort Lady Gnome to a waiting carriage, and she prepares to depart. As she leaves, Lady Gnome bids them farewell and comments that small red things would suit them. The elf asks about Immortal and hears she's still being processed while the princess was granted special courtesy. They accept they must wait for Immortal to finish at the guild. Time passes and night settles over the town again. Bored, the two worry that Immortal is taking unusually long. Marin's stomach growls, signaling his hunger. He begins unpacking supplies, prompting Dahlia to suspiciously ask what strange food he'll produce this time. Marin reveals a vibrant salad bowl filled with greens and red berries. Dahlia, surprised he's eating only vegetables, is offered some of the salad. He refuses at first, suspecting the salad is made from monsters like Marin's other dishes. His empty stomach betrays him with a loud rumble despite his refusal. Embarrassed, he relents and asks for a portion, reasoning that vegetables should be safe. Marin serves him a forkful of the colorful salad. Dahlia tastes it, assuming Marin wouldn't hide anything too bizarre even in a salad. His eyes widen as he realizes the salad is shockingly delicious. Dahlia becomes enthusiastic, praising the fresh, zesty vegetables, the oil-based dressing, and declaring it the best salad he has eaten since leaving the forest. While happily eating, he asks what the soft ingredient in the salad is. Marin calmly reveals that the soft pieces are slime. Horrified, Dahlia trembles as he repeats in disbelief that he just ate slime. Marin explains he lacked ingredients for konjac, experimented with slime in desserts, and settled on salad as the safest use. He adds that the vegetables are mostly normal market produce, implying a few unusual additions. Marin admits he dried and ground a spicy dungeon monster called Pinyu Pinyu to use as seasoning. Dahlia screams as he learns the seasoning's potency can make food extremely spicy or have other uses. Losing his temper, he shakes Marin, shouting that he was tricked into eating monsters again. Marin protests that Dahlia praised the taste, and Dahlia yells that he didn't know it contained monster ingredients. Dahlia argues about whether slimes count as animals while insisting his issue is not vegetarianism but eating monsters. Exhausted, Immortal returns, commenting that her companions still have energy even at night, and is asked what happened at the guild. She complains about the mountain of paperwork she had to handle, and the others acknowledge they should appreciate her effort. Immortal proudly announces she has been promoted to B-rank adventurer. At the guild office, staff prepare for the party's audience with management. The party is summoned before a muscular man, and Immortal begins to speak. The man identifies them as the chaotic party that saved the dwarf princess, and introduces himself as Helion Hexalim, the vice guild master. He confirms that the cat girl is Immortal, addressing her directly. Helion hands her an official B-rank certification and tells her to keep it safe. He expects Immortal to continue achieving noteworthy deeds. Overjoyed, Immortal celebrates reaching B-rank and sets her sights on A-rank next. Dahlia warns her not to get arrogant, but Immortal jokes that she might surpass him to A-rank soon. Helion cuts in, asking if they know how party rank is determined and implying this isn't time to celebrate. He explains that a party's rank equals its lowest member's rank, so despite Immortal being B-rank, the party remains C-rank because Dahlia and Marin are C-rank. Immortal concludes they must quickly raise everyone to B-rank so the party can aim for A-rank together. Marin, addressing Helion, asks a question that has been on his mind. He brings up the dragon that attacked Adrama 80 years ago and asks about the gold dragon. Helion listens silently as Marin inquires, exhaling smoke thoughtfully. Helion says the event predates his birth, so he lacks first-hand knowledge. However, he recalls hearing repeatedly how catastrophic the attack was. Images of the burning city and suffering people illustrate the horror he describes. Marin and Immortal listen tensely to this grim recollection. Helion says a senior staffer named Daisy, who has worked at the guild longest, knows more. Daisy offers to guide the party to the records room, and Marin thanks her. After they leave, Helion returns to his paperwork. Reading a report mentioning Marin Glace, he murmurs the knight's name. He wonders how someone so strong could appear out of nowhere. Noting that Marin is also seeking the gold dragon, Helion decides this is someone to watch carefully. In the archives, Daisy asks why Marin wants information on the gold dragon, explaining she organized those records. Marin asks specifically about the whereabouts of the Mad Dragon, or Gold Dragon, after the Adrama attack. Daisy answers that records say adventurers defeated it during the attack. A fiery scene shows the dragon amid flames as she recounts its supposed slaying. Marin is stunned to hear that the dragon is considered already defeated. He rejects this, insisting the Mad Dragon died long ago according to history. He pictures the orphans and fallen comrades whose revenge he has sought for years and questions what his life has been for. Alone in the dark, Marin wonders what meaning his long quest has if the dragon truly died. Daisy adds that the official record is likely inaccurate. She explains that while the record states subjugation, the notation probably reflected only the situation at the time. She describes how massive fire magic rained down on the dragon during the battle. Adventurers shielded themselves from the inferno as the onslaught continued. When the flames finally died down, the observers saw something unexpected. The dragon's body had vanished completely from the scorched crater. Daisy reiterates that no corpse or later sightings were found, so the guild simply recorded the subjugation as complete. Marin reasons that human magic alone cannot reduce a dragon to ash, implying another explanation. He concludes that the Mad Dragon must still be alive somewhere. Marin asks Daisy where he can find more detailed information, and she suggests the Thieves' Guild might investigate. She notes there is currently no Thieves' Guild in Adrama but mentions a large one called Forgotten in the Western Wasteland. The name Forgotten catches Marin's attention. Daisy elaborates that Forgotten Soul Branch lies in the Rolta Wasteland and serves as a base for adventurers in the harsh desert. She warns that Western monsters are strong and entry to that guild's region is restricted to at least B-rank adventurers. Marin thanks her for the explanation as she excuses herself if there are no further questions. Marin reflects that he must reach this dangerous western land where entry itself is controlled by the guild. He believes going west is his key to finally uncovering information on the Mad Dragon. Clenching his fist, he steels his resolve. He decides that to reach the west he first has to attain B-rank himself. Some days later at the Hexalim Guild Hall, the party throws themselves into non-stop work. Other adventurers watch as they return yet again with heavy sacks of spoils. The three trudge and exhausted, each carrying bulging monster-laden bags. Onlookers gossip that this is their third trip today, that they've taken nearly 10 requests in a week, and flooded the market with orc and harpy parts. The dog-like receptionist wonders how they can work so hard without rest. Immortal slams down their collected request items for inspection, and the clerk nervously begins checking. On the way out, Dahlia grumbles that Marin's monster-eating habits are more stressful than doing all these quests, and Immortal agrees. They recall a recent dungeon run where Marin tried eating 15 kinds of slimes alive and suffered every status ailment imaginable. Back in the present, Marin muses whether slime is best eaten in salad, while Dahlia complains he's already thinking of more monster cuisine. Dahlia yells at Immortal to learn a status cure skill for Marin's self-inflicted ailments, and she reluctantly agrees it may be necessary. The receptionist finishes verifying all items and praises their hard work. Immortal immediately activates her interface to proceed with their promotion paperwork. The clerk presents promotion applications for 2 party members plus a party rank promotion form. Dahlia is impressed by Immortal's unusually quick administrative work, and she proudly explains she prepared everything before leaving the dungeon. She mentions seeing preparations for the Festival of the New Sun, noting it will begin soon. As lanterns go up around town, they discuss how lively the city will be for the next couple of weeks. Immortal suggests they rest during the festival since they've been overworking, and Dahlia agrees. Marin reflects silently that the Festival of the New Sun still continues after all these years. He recalls in nostalgia how he once walked around that festival long ago with his companions. The receptionist calls the messy party forward, saying promotion verification is complete, exciting Immortal. He announces that both Dahlia and Marin Glace have met the promotion requirements, and can advance to B rank. He notes there is just one final check remaining, calling the news joyous. A heavily armored knight strides in, claiming he just happened to overhear but came to celebrate. This radiant hero grins broadly as he joins them. Dahlia and Immortal bristle, wondering why this troublesome hero has appeared again. The hero insists he only came to praise their efforts, and says they might someday reach A rank like him, while Marin inwardly decides not to engage with such a person. The hero then presses Marin, saying that as a new B rank he should finally show his face. He explains he has long been curious about this powerful, mysterious adventurer who arrived out of nowhere. He emphasizes that no one knows what Marin looks like, heightening the sense of mystery. The hero argues that B rank adventurers are main forces of the guild, so concealing one's face undermines trust. Dahlia and Immortal angrily accuse him of fixating on Marin's face for no reason. The hero feigns innocence, teasing them for being defensive as Immortal demands he leave her comrade alone. Dahlia starts to address Marin, who remains silent and tense. Surrounded by murmuring adventurers, Dahlia and Immortal realize no one can recall ever seeing Marin's face, and that this oddity is fueling suspicion. The receptionist nervously interjects that, by guild rules, the hero actually has a point. He explains that from B rank onward the guild requires clear identification records, including appearance, for every regular member. Dahlia begs for an exception, offering his own guarantee of Marin's identity, but the clerk insists rules cannot be bent. The clerk suggests a compromise. Marin could reveal his face privately to receptionists only. The hero twists this, dramatically accusing the guild of hiding the identity of a dangerous kinslayer if they agree. He claims that if Marin's identity is uncertain, other adventurers deserve to see his face for their safety. Rumors begin spreading through the hall, recalling past stories of the helmeted man killing beginner parties, making people uneasy. Dahlia realizes the hero is deliberately stoking fear and anxiety against Marin. The hero presses Marin again, saying unless he has something to hide there is no reason not to show his face. Immortal urges Marin not to listen to the scoundrel and promises they will find another way to prove his identity. Marin suddenly slaps her reaching hand away, rejecting her attempt to comfort or stop him. He staggers away in emotional turmoil while his companions call after him in alarm. Tears hit the wooden floor as he begins to break down. Overwhelmed, Marin covers his helmet with his hands, repeatedly crying out in denial. Immortal and Dahlia rush to his side, worried and demanding to know why he is acting like this. The hero smirks, saying Marin's extreme reaction only makes him seem more suspicious. He declares that if Marin cannot even show his face now, he will formally petition the guild to investigate him. Someone recalls needing to explain when and how the Kinslayer title was earned. They also worry whether he is actually a dangerous wanted criminal. Marin bolts for the exit as his party members shout for him to wait. Immortal furiously curses the human hero. She rages that he insulted her companion and threatens to tear his head off. The hero mocks their anti-human stance and calls her behavior more savage than humans. Immortal thinks he is vile and lunges, but Dahlia restrains her and tells the hero to stop. Dahlia warns there are too many witnesses and that attacking a hero would bring punishment on their party. He reminds Immortal as leader not to lose sight of the party's objective. She protests that the human insulted their comrade. Dahlia says he understands. He adds that now is not the time for retaliation and that their injured companion must come first. Outside, Marin keeps running. He berates himself for fleeing despite knowing it would trouble his party. Exhausted in an alley, he pants heavily. Trembling, he stares at his hand and anxiety overwhelms him. A memory surfaces of dark power being released. He remembers waking among corpses and bones. A mysterious person decides to take him away from that place. That person plans to change clothes and hurry back to a drama. Marin recalls seeing his own face in the past through someone else's eyes. In the present he touches his forehead, wondering if something monstrous has grown there. He remembers feeling his helmet with his hand. Tormented, he wonders if his face is still that of a monster. He recalls being told that even B-rank parties cannot accept B-rank quests without guild approval. He fears that if his monstrous face is revealed before others, disaster will follow. He remembers people screaming and calling him a monster. He remembers being denounced as a shape-shifting monster and threatened with arrest. Dahlia and Immortal recall reacting in shock to that scene. Marin thinks that if that happens again he will be forced to leave, since he drags the party down. Dahlia catches up to him outside and orders him to stop. Gasping, Dahlia threatens to shoot a tracking arrow into Marin's leg if he keeps running. Marin faces him silently, helmet hiding his expression. Dahlia proposes they talk. Later that night the party meets in their inn. Dahlia and Immortal sit grimly in silence across from him. Marin sits with head bowed, equally speechless. Dahlia says he will not scold Marin for running away, and Marin apologizes. Dahlia then presses him, asking how long he will avoid this and why he refuses to show his face even to them. Immortal adds that they need to know the reason so they can help, begging him to explain. Marin clenches his fist and begins his story, saying it started long ago. He recounts being caught up in a certain incident that gave him the Kinslayer title, insisting he had never killed before then. After that incident, he felt as though his face had become that of a monster. Everyone who saw his face back then reacted as if witnessing a hideous creature. Because of that, he fears showing his face to anyone, even his current companions. He worries that if word spreads that his face is monstrous, it will bring trouble to him and to his party. Since their goal is to become an A-rank party, he says he cannot ruin their future because of him. He suggests they should find a new companion before his presence causes problems, prompting Immortal to slam the table and shout that he is talking nonsense. Immortal angrily demands how he can decide on his own that they need a new member. Dahlia yells that if that is all Marin thought of them, it is insulting, reminding him they even accepted that he is human. Marin insists that even if they say now that any face is fine, they might change their minds after seeing it. Dahlia and Immortal exchange a look, preparing their response. Dahlia says that being human is already scary enough, so he does not care what Marin's face looks like. Immortal takes Marin's hand and agrees. She argues that since he already eats monsters, a weird-looking face is no big deal and they are fine with him being human. Dahlia says that regardless of whether Marin's face is monstrous or something bizarre, they still want to adventure with him. Hearing their assurances, Marin feels that familiar emotional reaction rising again. He remembers similar promises in the past that ended in betrayal and thinks it always turns out this way. Yet even after being deceived many times, he still wants to trust people who speak kindly to him. Looking at their determined faces, he admits he wants to rely on them. He asks them to promise they will not run or scream when they see his face, and Dahlia solemnly swears it. Immortelle swears as well, staking her name and her younger siblings. Marin, trembling, agrees to show them. He slowly starts removing his helmet. He lifts it completely off. Dahlia and Immortelle react in stunned silence at what they see. The next day dawns bright over the city and guild tower. Inside the guild, people gossip that the shielded who ran away will reveal his face today and wonder if he is a wanted criminal. Others debate his race, noting his party hates humans yet his kinslayer title implies he is human. The hero publicly urges everyone not to fight, suggesting Marin might just be an ordinary innocent person. The crowd relaxes a little, trusting the hero's words. Internally, however, the hero calls them fools and believes Marin fled because he has something to hide. He reasons that if he offers the crowd a plausible accusation, they will naturally turn on Marin. He vows to ensure Marin can never enter the guild again. Elsewhere, a man smoking a cigar complains that people are making a fuss over nothing. He tells the guild clerk he wishes adventurers would put that much energy into accepting requests. The clerk worries whether forcing Marin into this situation is really okay given his unknown circumstances. She notes that despite rumors, Marin's messy party is considered a promising next-generation team with excellent teamwork. The muscular man says he does not care about someone who cannot even show his face but notes that if their unity falters it will be a problem, then asks why clients prefer adventurers over mercenaries. He explains that the key difference is trust. He recounts how mercenaries often turned criminal for petty gain and were used as expendable shields in wars. By contrast, adventurers have lower combat power but handle varied tasks and are less prone to crime. Because of that, more mercenaries have shifted to adventuring and the Hexalim Guild has grown accordingly. He admits he dislikes the hero too but points out that Marin's kinslayer title, habit of eating monsters, and mysterious strength make him risky. He concludes they have ample justification to interfere and prevent trouble, since they cannot jeopardize the guild's trust for one rookie. As Marin steps into the guild, onlookers murmur that he has arrived. The messy party enters together, Marin at the front with his companions flanking him. Some adventurers whisper that the party has guts showing up again after running away. The Beastman receptionist nervously asks Marin if he is really okay revealing himself in such a public setting. Marin lowers his head without answering. Dahlia rests a reassuring hand on his shoulder, telling him not to worry. He reminds Marin that they said yesterday it would be fine and urges him to trust them. Marin agrees quietly. With shaking hand he reaches for his helmet to remove it. His long white hair spills out as the helm comes free. The helmet hits the floor and shatters with a splash of drink, drawing everyone's attention. People scream in shock at the sudden reveal. Even the cigar-smoking man gasps. The hero grandly addresses the room, pretending to be the one with the terrible face and chiding them for overreacting. When he finally sees Marin's uncovered face, his eyes widen in disbelief. Marin's lips are shown as he finishes taking off his hood. His true appearance is revealed, a strikingly beautiful young man clutching his discarded helmet. The onlookers are stunned, questioning if such a face was hidden inside that armor, and even if he is human. Others marvel that no one has ever seen such a face and wonder where he comes from. Someone staring at him wonders if he is really male since he is more beautiful than the local women. Immortelle smugly reminds everyone they are overreacting, asking if they already forgot last night's discussion. The story flashes back to that previous night at the inn. Marin apologizes to his companions, assuming his ugliness has left them speechless. Immortelle and Dahlia are floored for a different reason as he apologizes for forcing them to look at something so hideous. Immortelle immediately snatches his old helmet away. She kicks it clear across the room, destroying it. She calls him by his nickname in shock as the helmet clatters away. Turning her back, she says that next time, she warns that if he ever hides his face with that thing and deceives people again, she will blow his head off. Marin, still insecure, asks if he is really that ugly, prompting her to shout that he is a scammer. Furious, she yells that calling such a face ugly is unforgivable, while Dahlia tries to calm her down. Dahlia, more composed, asks how Marin could ever think he looked like a monster with a face like that. Marin begins to explain. He says memories of the old accident kept mixing with the present until he could no longer remember his real appearance. Even when he tried to check in a mirror, he could not bear to look. Fear and self-loathing always stopped him from seeing his own face. He also worried that if someone recognized him, he might be dragged back to the royal castle. The flashback ends with Immortelle now in the guild pushing gawkers away, telling them to stop staring at her comrade. Some humans grumble that the messy party clearly hates them but resent being scolded just for looking. When others ask the hero's opinion, they realize he has vanished. Outside, the city streets lead toward the distant royal district. In a secluded alley the hero punches a wall in rage. Seething, he curses Marin for making a fool of him, the hero. A local shouts at him for causing a racket. The thug then eyes his expensive clothes and decides to rob him. The hero instantly kills the would-be mugger in a blood-soaked strike. Standing over the corpse, he wonders why Marin ever hid such a face even while accused as a kinslayer. He realizes Marin's situation must have been a trap aimed at himself from the beginning. He recalls how Marin stole the first dungeon clear title and now seems to threaten his standing as hero as well. A hooded subordinate appears, and the hero snarls that Marin is just a lowly adventurer, asking if their business is done. He agrees it is and orders a return to the capital after instructing the subordinate to clean up the body. The subordinate acknowledges, remarking that the dead man's crime was pointing a blade at a hero. As the hero walks away, he thinks he knows Marin's plot and believes Marin is trying to steal his glorious fame. He vows to show Marin what it means to oppose a hero and promises to make him regret it. Later, during a festival at the plaza, Immortelle watches musicians and dancers. She asks Marin what the humans are doing, and he explains it is folk dancing. Dahlia grumbles about copying humans, while Immortelle excitedly insists dancing looks fun and they should do it too. She tells Marin he is the only one who knows the dance and begs him to teach them, though he claims he cannot dance well. She replies that it does not matter. She explains that a festival is for everyone to enjoy together, and says that is how it was in her hometown. Marin hesitates silently, moved. She grabs Dahlia and Marin's hands and drags them toward the dancers despite his protests. She pulls the bag from his head, insisting he must dance properly without hiding. Nearby children see Marin's face and stare in delighted surprise. The children excitedly call Marin handsome, ask him to dance with them, and gush over how pretty he is. As Rin dances hand in hand with the others, he reflects that the century-long emptiness in his life is slowly being filled. Looking up at the moon and falling petals, Rin wonders what tasty foods they will get to eat from tomorrow on. Nearby women gossip, admiring how handsome the person dancing over there is. Daisy and Dahlia laugh at Rin's clumsy dancing while he protests that he already said he is bad at it, remembering everyone from the messy party. Daisy finds Daisy the Beast Man and says she has been searching for her. Daisy tells Daisy she does not know what the visitor wants, but the messy party is currently taking a break from jobs. Daisy compliments Rin, saying clothes other than armor suit him very well. As Rin hurriedly puts a paper bag over his head again, a companion points out that everyone has already seen his face and questions why he is covering it. Daisy presents an ornate document, saying it is not urgent but she has something to give them, and the Beast Man wonders what it is. Daisy reveals that the document is a special nominated request addressed specifically to the messy party, shocking the group. In a distant grand hall filled with statues, ominous smoke wafts through the air. The scene lingers on a lavish banquet table and candles in the same eerie hall. Someone gently washes another person's feet in a basin scattered with rose petals. A refined dark-haired woman smiles in satisfaction and remarks how wonderful this is. She orders that the promised reward be given to an informant, and that a carriage and a dress be prepared immediately. The woman declares that she herself will go, stepping forward confidently in her elegant dress. Back at the festival, Rin steels himself and decides they must travel to the place indicated by the nominated request. The narration introduces the festival of the new sun held in the town square. It explains that this is a traditional drama festival celebrated as the continent approaches summer. The festival is described as overflowing with music and dancing that echo the heat of the sun. It is further said to feature rich food and unique alcohol of the busy trade city, while we see the bustling plaza from above. The crowd toast together, shouting cheers as their mugs clash and froth spills. Dahlia happily proclaims that since they have worked so hard, they should eat and drink to their heart's content during the festival. Noticing Rin's exhausted look, Hexarim asks why his face seems so drained. Daisy explains that Rin is worn out because Dahlia made him play dress-up mannequin in a clothing shop for 3 hours straight. Hexarim teases Dahlia that she looked possessed during that clothes shopping frenzy, which scared Daisy. Surrounded by shopping bags, Rin mutters that he does not need so many clothes. Hexarim scolds him, insisting he cannot be allowed to keep wearing his usual rags and must dress to match his good looks. Daisy agrees, telling Rin he really should dress up more. Rin internally wonders why everyone is acting like he is the one in the wrong. As he walks through the lit plaza bareheaded, he realizes it has been a long time since he went outside without his helmet. Hearing nearby women gush over how handsome a certain guy is and wanting to see him, Rin flinches in embarrassment. Daisy notes that because this is a special festival, Rin should take the chance to learn about fashion from Dahlia. Overwhelmed, Rin covers his head with the paper bag again, prompting his friends to yell at him for wearing it. Hexarim and Daisy angrily order Rin to remove the bag because it ruins the drinking mood, while he timidly says he is worried about people staring. Daisy sighs that Rin has worn that chunk of iron armor for so long that they should be patient with him as he adjusts. Hexarim reassures Rin that time will solve his insecurity, saying his face is attractive enough to stand out even among humans. Later, with the bag still on, Rin announces that Uncle Lucky drank too much and fell asleep. Children dance around the musician singing about Uncle Lucky, repeating that he drank too much wine and passed out. Rin silently listens, his mouth barely visible under the paper bag. The song's refrain about Uncle Lucky continues over images of roaring fire and festival lights, tying into Rin's memories. In his recollection, cheerful children invite young Marin to dance with them by the bonfire. A nun asks young Marin why he is only watching instead of joining the dancing, and he answers that he cannot dance well. The nun extends her hand, saying that it does not matter. She tells him that festivals are for everyone to enjoy together, and that even clumsy dancers simply need to have fun. Encouraged, young Marin reaches up and agrees to dance with everyone. The memory shows the nun and children, including Marin, joyfully dancing hand in hand around the blazing festival fire. Back in the present, Children at the New Sun Festival dance and sing the Uncle Lucky song while Rin watches again. In the noble hall, the same tune plays as servants attend to the elegant woman lounging with wine. A maid discreetly whispers news to the steward, who acknowledges it. The steward informs Lady Bonita that they have obtained the location and portrait of the person she is interested in. She smiles slyly, praising how quickly the work was done. Eager, she suggests they take a look at the target. A horn maid presents a cushion with a glowing crystal sphere on it. Lady Bonita activates the orb, which shines with magical light. Rin's image appears projected from the sphere, and Bonita exults that she has finally found him. The narrative shifts to the northern highlands of the continent, a rugged mountain region. It notes that even in this harsh land, people live there, as a wagon rattles along the road. The wagon comes to a stop and the driver tells his passengers they have arrived. One of the adventurers steps down onto the rocky ground. Rin, Hexerim, and Daisy gaze ahead and confirm this is their destination. The place is identified as the mining village of Tyrek. Daisy's sensitive ears twitch as she suddenly reacts to a sharp noise. Both Daisy and Hexerim clutch their ears, complaining about the painful metallic clamor in the village. They remark that the air is murky with smoke from all the forges and that the town is packed with blacksmiths. Grumbling that work came so soon after the festival when they wanted more rest, they wonder who nominated such a barely B-rank party like them. Rin reflects that nominated requests are usually used only by high nobles and feels uneasy about the client's identity. Examining the document, he notes that the request comes from the Golden Workshop Morgano, a name he has never heard of, and questions how rich they must be. He also thinks that since they have been resting since reaching B-rank, their party is not well known, and worries the client may demand something unreasonable. Following the rough map, they arrive before a large gate where Rin says the workshop should be located. The trio stands before an imposing stone building with huge doors. Daisy knocks and calls out that the messy party has arrived. They wait in silence, confused when no one immediately responds. Daisy wonders aloud if knocking harder would make them heard, but Hexerim panics about the cost if they damage the door. With all the surrounding noise, they debate whether continuing to knock or opening the door themselves is the best way to get attention. Rin spots a crystal device by the door that looks like some kind of bell mechanism. He presses the glowing switch. Daisy, startled, asks what Rin just did, and he explains he pushed a switch-like thing beside the door. The door opens and a gruff voice asks who is there as the party peers inside. A dwarf appears, surprised to see them. Realizing he faces an elf, a beastman, and a human, the dwarf confirms they are the messy party and invites them in, saying they were expected. Inside the workshop, he asks them to wait at a table, saying the master will see them shortly. Daisy wipes sweat and complains that the complicated door nearly got broken by them. Footsteps approach and a voice apologizes that the entrance uses not yet commercialized technology. A young dwarf woman arrives, thanking the adventurers for answering her call and prompting Dahlia to recognize her as Lord Gnome. Overwhelmed, Dahlia and Hexerim bow nervously, wondering why a great figure like Lord Gnome would hire them and vowing to work with all their hearts. Gnome laughs and tells them not to be so stiff, urging them to sit and talk. Tea is served on the table between them. Gnome calmly sips tea in silence while the others wait tensely. Dahlia finally asks what business Lord Gnome has with them. Gnome explains that she wants them to gather materials used for forging arms and armor and learned of nominated requests, through which she chose Hexerim's party. She recounts that on discovering the nominated request system she saw a familiar party name and decided to call them, while Dahlia feels honored Gnome remembered her. Rin asks if this recognition is really such a big deal and then inquires why. If Gnome recently returned to the dwarf homeland, she is now in a human village. Gnome answers that she came to learn a vital technique for craftsmen. She explains that dwarves have focused on blacksmithing since ancient times, giving them unmatched martial technology. However, she says that because of this long focus, other technologies were neglected and declined. With the Demon Lord's revival looming, her people have become even more obsessed with making weapons and armor. At the same time, daily living standards have stagnated, which she considers not true development, but she has discovered an astonishing technique in the human kingdom. Gnome declares that this is an extremely important technique that dwarves must restore. Hexerim, stunned, asks what kind of technique dwarves should learn from humans despite being the pinnacle of technology. Gnome builds suspense, saying the technique is none other than something specific. She reveals dramatically that the technique is cooking. She says she was amazed by human food and the tools and methods behind it, praising human culinary technology. She laments that, overshadowed by blacksmithing, food-related techniques in dwarf culture have withered until barely existent, with craftsmen thinking any meal that fuels hammer-swinging is enough. Therefore, she resolved to change this. Gnome proclaims that she will not return to her homeland until she has mastered cooking techniques to her satisfaction. She concludes that this is why she stays here, continuing to learn and gain experience with cooking. She then asks the party to share their cooking culture with her someday, causing Rin's companions to glance uneasily at the food-obsessed knight. Rin sits silently, processing the request. He then glows with resolve, clearly ready to engage with this culinary mission. Gnome says that is enough about herself and moves on to explaining the details and precautions of the job, which Dahlia eagerly agrees to hear. Later, the group enters the dark dungeon called the Cave of Night, commenting on the darkness and asking for light. Daisy casts a spell that conjures bright spheres of light. Hexarim judges the illumination sufficient and studies the map. He explains that their goal is a white mineral with red sparks and the thigh bones of monsters that inhabit the dungeon. Not seeing either yet, he notes from the map that they must venture deeper inside. Rin, wearing his helmet again, wonders what kind of monsters would make tasty food and what flavors dwarves might dislike. He thinks that if this mission can revive dwarf food culture, they may accept monster cuisine as long as it looks appetizing. Hexarim and Daisy mutter that Rin seems fixated solely on feeding gnome exotic dishes and worry that serving such things might get them all killed. Hexarim vows internally to stop Rin from bringing back monster meat no matter what. To distract him, Daisy spots a nearby mineral deposit and calls Rin's attention to it. Hexarim inspects the crystals and concludes their color does not match the requested ore, so what they seek must be elsewhere. Daisy suggests they continue farther into the cave. Hexarim suddenly hears an ominous sound and tenses up. Daisy senses that something big is approaching and shouts a warning as Hexarim asks where it is. A section of the wall explodes and Immortel is blasted away by the impact. Dust and debris rain down in the cavern. Hexarim rushes to Immortel's side, asking if she is hurt, and she points worriedly towards something ahead. Hexarim looks and reacts in shock at what he sees. A huge one-eyed beast, a Catoblepas, emerges roaring from the rubble. The monster charges down the tunnel toward the party with a deafening scream. Rin braces behind his shield, recalling that while Catoblepas are not very high level, their single eye is extremely dangerous. The narration explains that looking directly into that cyclopean eye triggers its power. Anyone who meets its gaze will instantly be turned to stone. Hexarim asks if Marin is ready, saying he will attack once Rin restrains the creature as planned. Rin activates his special perception ability Mind's Eye. He reasons that if he can neutralize the Catoblepas' eye, he can capture it safely and protect his comrades. As he moves in, there is a sudden jarring impact. Rin slams bodily into the monster, grappling it amid a violent clash. Dahlia and Hexarim cry out in alarm, calling Marin's name to see if he is all right. Rin's gauntlet hand clamps tightly onto part of the beast. He plants his foot firmly, anchoring himself despite the struggle. We see Rin from behind, physically restraining the towering Catoblepas with sheer strength. Hexarim shouts that they must rush in and help as well, urging Rin to hold on. Rin exhales steadily while maintaining his grip on the monster. He then drives a crushing blow into the Catoblepas' eye, destroying it despite the spray of blood. As the fight winds down, Dahlia and Hexarim tell Marin to leave the rest of them, uneasy at how far he is going. The wounded Catoblepas howls in agony as blue blood splashes everywhere. Rin stands spattered in the beast's fluids, calm behind his damaged helmet. Surveying the aftermath, he notes matter-of-factly that his helmet has broken, while his exhausted companions react with dismay. Marin removes his cracked, blood-stained helmet. Immortel tells Rin that Marin losing his helmet is a good chance to console his spirit. Marin nervously admits he feels extremely unsafe without his helmet. Rin reacts in flustered shock to Marin's anxiety. Immortel wails that Marin's worried face makes her feel horribly guilty. Immortel asks Dahlia if Marin's expression does not stir any feelings in her. Dahlia concedes that despite Marin's pretty face he is still the same monster eater inside. Dahlia marvels that someone who looks like Marin actually eats monsters. Marin drags the Catoblepas' corpse, deciding to butcher some meat for dinner, especially the strong hind legs. The slab of Catoblepas meat is unveiled, oozing ominously. Dahlia and Immortel complain that Marin always chooses weird, foul-smelling food and doubt he should eat it. Marin pours antidote onto the poisonous Catoblepas meat to try detoxifying it. After slicing the detoxified meat into bite-sized pieces called raw Catoblepas meat, Marin notes its unsettling look. Examining a piece, Marin notes the hind leg meat is surprisingly soft and moist instead of springy. Immortel reminds Marin how deadly Catoblepas blood is, but he insists the antidote makes it safe while she protests it is inedible regardless. Marin imagines the meat might taste sweet like juice as he puts a piece in his mouth. As he chews, Marin suddenly realizes the taste is remarkable. He analyzes the flavor as beef-like but with a fish-like texture, comparing the fatty marbling to fresh salmon. Marin is amazed that the meat melts on his tongue with hardly any chewing. He imagines how tender it would remain even grilled like a steak. Dahlia and Immortel struggle because the dish looks dangerously delicious despite being poison, and Immortel warns others not to be fooled by Marin's face. They lament that Marin's beauty makes anything he eats look appetizing and remark on the power of appearances. Marin decides to grill the remaining Catoblepas meat, still intrigued that this beast tastes like fish. Suddenly Marin senses something wrong. A system window informs Marin he has been poisoned, as blood drips from his mouth. Immortel and Dahlia sigh, saying they knew this would happen when Marin collapses. Immortel scolds Marin for never learning while curing him, and he notes the poison was too strong for a normal antidote. As the healing takes effect, Marin weakly reacts. A system message grants Marin the new passive skill Pain Tolerance, increasing his resistance to pain and incapacitation. Marin thanks Immortel and tells the others he just acquired Pain Tolerance, surprising her. Dahlia explains the guild already spread information on how to gain pain tolerance by repeatedly self-poisoning with painful toxins, so most adventurers already have it. Marin realizes that his monster eating has counted as self-poisoning, while Immortel complains it forced her to learn status ailment removal, and Dahlia orders them to resume searching for the whetstone. Later, at the Dwarven workshop, Immortel announces their return and is told the ordered goods are ready. Inside, an apprentice says Master Gnome is busy and asks them to wait. Immortel lounges restlessly, saying the commission ended early and she is bored. She suddenly remembers they have not eaten yet and notices an appetizing smell. Marin brings out a platter that Immortel identifies as fried harpy. Dahlia panics that Marin brought such an ominous dish into Master Gnome's workshop, but Marin argues they are hungry. Immortel rationalizes that eating quickly before Gnome returns should be fine and urges Marin to finish it. Marin pauses with a piece of fried harpy on a fork, making Immortel drool. Seeing her desire, Marin offers some, and she eagerly accepts under the excuse of a special exception. Immortel ecstatically praises the fried harpy's melting batter, seasoning, juiciness, and irresistible texture. Dahlia accuses Immortel of betraying him by eating it, but she insists they must finish the dish before Master Gnome arrives. Master Gnome suddenly appears, overhearing their plan, and Immortel screams. Gnome asks what food they are eating, while Dahlia and Immortel clumsily insist it is nothing. When Gnome wonders if they cooked it, they frantically deny they would ever eat such a thing. Gnome, intrigued, asks to try the mysterious dish. The party is horrified as Gnome's disciples look equally shocked. Marin, excited, says he is looking forward to exploring human food culture. Dahlia and Immortel desperately beg Gnome not to eat such a lowly thing. Gnome coldly calls their protests insolent. Channeling an imposing aura, she warns the children of the sun and world tree not to oppose her will. Dahlia and Immortel bow, insisting they never meant to defy her. Gnome calmly takes a piece of fried harpy. She bites into it. Her eyes widen as she savors the taste. Gnome ecstatically describes the fried harpy as crispy outside, juicy and sweet inside, rich with oil and salt, better than a count's banquet. Marin is stunned that a dwarf royal, used to all delicacies, praises monster cuisine so highly. Dahlia and Immortel nervously wonder what meat it is, speculating disturbing possibilities. Gnome presses them to reveal what animal the meat comes from and where they got it, while Immortel stalls. Immortel finally confesses it is harpy meat. Gnome assumes harpy is a farmed bird species, but Immortel awkwardly clarifies it is a bird monster with a human face. Gnome repeats harpy in disbelief, trying to process that she ate monster meat. Offended disciples shout that they set that meat aside specially for Gnome's sake. They rage that feeding their master such revolting food is insolent, and rush to treat her in case of poison. Marin explains he removed the poison during cooking so it should be safe. A disciple threatens to execute Marin for creating that abomination, but Gnome stops them, saying she is fine. Gnome states that Marin's companions tried to stop him, and she forgives them. She admits the dish being harpy meat shocks her, yet it is undeniably delicious. Curious, Marin asks if other monsters might be as tasty, and Gnome replies that most are inedible compared to harpy. Gnome concludes monster meat can surpass livestock depending on preparation and decides to research edible monsters and applicable antidotes. She then recalls that Marin's equipment was damaged during their request. Because they fulfilled the request well and served her a delicacy, she is inclined to grant them a special favor. Gnome announces she will personally craft their equipment. The party is overwhelmed, calling it a tremendous honor. Gnome also asks Marin to teach her everything about monster cuisine from now on. Dahlia and Immortel watch her interest in Marin with unease. Marin respectfully agrees to instruct Master Gnome. The scene shifts to the guild building under a clear sky. At the guild, a receptionist confirms their mission and thanks them. Outside, Dahlia and Immortel rejoice that Master Gnome herself will be crafting their gear, calling it a once-in-a-lifetime honor. Dahlia turns to Marin to raise another matter. Marin resumes pouring antidote on monster meat elsewhere, justifying that even Master Gnome took interest in such cuisine. Dahlia complains about him displaying disgusting food in public, while Marin insists on quickly checking the antidote ratio. Passers-by recall, telling him not to bring such revolting things out where everyone can see, but he stubbornly wants to keep experimenting. Back at the guild counter, the receptionist calls to Marin Glace about a follow-up to his earlier question. She says requests from the Western continent remain and asks if he is interested. Marin notes the West was described as restricted and wonders if a newly B-rank party can really go, but she assures them it is fine. Another guild official explains that thanks to Master Gnome's favorable letter, the messy party standing at the guild has risen considerably. Marin thinks this means he can finally investigate the Mad Dragon. Unsure, he asks if he must decide immediately, and the receptionist recommends answering quickly since requests are first come, first served. Marin hesitates because he has not heard Dahlia and Immortel's opinions yet. He explains to them that a Western guild supposedly holds information on the dragon he seeks. Marin says he would like to go west if they consent. Dahlia and Immortel reassure him he need not ask every time and that following his goal with higher rank requests will only help them grow. The party agrees that their next mission will be in the west, and Marin thanks them. The receptionist happily registers the Western request for the messy party. Someone tells Marin to look toward the entrance, drawing his attention. The guild becomes noisy as others notice commotion at the door. Outside, a man peers through a window asking what is going on. Carriages roll up before a noble-looking building in town. Guild staff wonder why so many servants have assembled and if a noble is arriving. A glimpse of a luxurious dress shows someone stepping down. A richly dressed young lady disembarks from the carriage, announcing her arrival. She introduces herself internally as Bonita de Demardua and says she has come where her new treasure resides. Onlookers whisper that she is the powerful lady of House Demardua, a top-ranked billionaire noble. Staff rush to greet her, asking what business brings her here so suddenly and offering to arrange whatever she needs. Bonita coldly orders the staff aside, saying her business is not with insignificant people like them. Dahlia notices the noble striding directly toward their group and wonders why. Bonita walks right up to Marin and stares at him. She admires him in person and declares he seems even more worth owning. Bonita rhapsodizes over Marin's amethyst-like eyes and radiant silken white hair as she touches it. Marin realizes this situation feels very familiar. Dahlia angrily demands to know what this human is planning by appearing out of nowhere. Bonita loudly calls Marin a peerless beauty. She proclaims she will take him somewhere befitting his face and commands him to become hers. Immortelle explodes in anger, shouting that Marin is not an object to be claimed. Before she can act further, she is restrained or interrupted in surprise. Bonita's stern servants glare menacingly at Immortelle and Dahlia. Bonita suggests they leave this shabby place at once. Marin looks silently troubled. Dahlia and Immortelle frantically ask what Bonita wants with Marin and if he knows her. Marin says the situation is slightly different but reminds him of a past experience with a similar noble. He recalls a previous noble who, smitten by his face, tried to buy him with jewelry and money. Bonita also praises Marin's beautiful voice and promises him the best room in her mansion. Immortelle again yells that Marin is not a slave and demands to know why Bonita wants to take him. Bonita's expression darkens as she questions how someone of such low status dares to speak so freely. She declares the only reason she has not erased them is because they are Marin's companions and insists she does not buy slaves. She gestures to her smiling servants, claiming they joined her willingly and live happily. Bonita contrasts herself with nobles who abduct beautiful youths and discard them, insisting she pays fairly and avoids cruelty. She promises Marin that if he joins her he will never lack food, clothing, or shelter and will be paid far above a normal maid because beauty deserves luxury. Marin thinks he has heard this kind of offer before. He asks if her ancestor was Mesh. Bonita is impressed he knows of her grandfather and assumes he understands noble customs. Marin recalls that Mesh used identical methods, concluding that the descendant is acting just like the ancestor. When Bonita excitedly urges him to leave and hear her dreams in the carriage, Marin plainly refuses. She describes the easy life of simply standing by her side and being pampered with baths, beds, and oils, but Marin flatly repeats that he dislikes the idea. Growing desperate, Bonita shouts that he would have gold and unlimited freedom if he agreed. Marin calmly reiterates that he still does not like it. Bonita clenches a trembling fist, unable to understand why she is rejected. She angrily wonders why adventurers refuse her despite not being forced, insisting she is not abusing her status. She recalls being rejected in a similar way by a shabby-looking hero who prioritized saving the world and important missions over her. Deciding she must have them no matter what, she resolves to add Marin and his friends to her collection even as slaves if necessary. The guild hall buzzes as staff and servants line up while the confrontation continues at its center. Elsewhere, someone holding a glowing orb notices the noise from that direction and asks if something has happened. The orb's holder concludes that something troublesome seems to be occurring. He deduces from his comrades' reactions that Marin's group is being forcibly taken and may be framed as criminal slaves. A towering bare-headed servant looms threateningly over Marin, preparing to act. Dahlia draws his weapon, vowing not to let humans repeat such abuses. Marin steels himself, deciding he will restrain them as gently as he can despite not wanting a commotion. A new figure steps in, apologizing for interrupting as he addresses the tense scene. The vice master criticizes causing a disturbance over personal matters, even for the count. Demardua downplays the incident as only a minor dispute, while acquiring art. Using a magic orb, the vice master says someone wants to meet the count and invites them to speak. A towering magic projection of a gnome woman appears before the girl. Demardua panics as she recognizes who the projected figure is. The adventurers are shocked, realizing the projection is Master Gnome. The gnome introduces herself as Ohira Gnome, a famed golden craftsman, while Demardua hurriedly gives her own noble name. Ohira compliments Demardua's beautiful museum, and says she likes art lovers but criticizes her for displaying living beings as if they were objects. Through the orb, the vice master lectures that people are not possessions, must be free to pursue their dreams, and that his benefactors cannot be taken against their will. Frightened, Demardua insists she only wanted to offer a proper reward. Ohira darkly asks if Demardua intends to provoke a diplomatic incident with her. Demardua hastily denies it, internally baffled that a mere commoner adventurer is being defended by a gnome. Demardua then pleads with Rin, calling him beautiful and begging at least to be allowed to draw his portrait. Rin refuses, saying it feels like becoming a specimen, while Demardua protests that she will not leave if she cannot draw him. Ohira tells Demardua to calm down and, as thanks for respecting the party, offers to personally craft one golden item for her, which astonishes Demardua. Satisfied with these terms, Demardua snaps her fingers to finalize the agreement. She orders everyone to wrap up for the day and go home as she departs. Afterward, Marin rushes to check on Marin and Rin's condition, while Demardua watches with a sly smile and Rin answers weakly. Demardua spitefully thinks that any remarkable jewel, like Rin, will eventually end up in the capital and resolves not to forget this beautiful commoner. She vows that when Rin reaches the capital, she will, under her noble name Demardua, make him hers. The Vice Master thanks Lord Gnome for resolving the issue, and she says she is glad and will now return to her work. Rin's party thanks the Vice Master, but he says they should thank Master Gnome instead and admits he dislikes getting mixed up with influential people. The elf advises they head west quickly before more trouble arises, and the beastskin jokes that Rin's face might keep attracting problems. Rin wonders if he should go back to hiding his face with the helmet, but the beastskin protests that such looks would be wasted. A guild staffer warns that if they are going west they must be careful because the situation there is complicated, prompting the elf to ask what is wrong. She explains that the commissioned dungeon, Dogalmus Relic Hall, is a wing-type dungeon requiring specialized knowledge, and the previous research party met with a serious accident and is still unconscious. She acknowledges the messy party's skill but warns them to be especially cautious since a single mistake in that dungeon can be fatal. Hearing how dangerous it is, the beastkin remarks that the west is on another level and the group agrees they must prepare thoroughly. Rin repeats the name Dogalmus Relic Hall and tries to recall what he knows about it. Remembering, he thinks the dungeon had many traps but was not supposed to be deadly enough to annihilate an entire party, so something must have changed. Elsewhere, in a torchlit hall, a cloaked congregation senses that something is amiss. A robed speaker tells the gathered cultists that the king of all monsters will soon descend upon the land. The speaker proclaims that the blood of all who refuse to obey this being will flow like a river. Revealed as a high-ranking cultist, he calls for rotten flesh to be offered to form the demon king's body. The hooded followers chant Iterum in fervent unison. Narration identifies the man as the demon king's first aide, who declares that when their lord appears they must aid their comrades. He urges them to advance their cause even further. He preaches that in this desolate land they must rescue comrades from so-called infidels and that, in the coming era, they will become the true foundation and righteousness of the world. Over a bound sacrifice, he says that if anyone tries to conceal the demon king's pure blackness, they must eradicate all white filth from the world. Raising his arms as red energy swirls, he exhorts the cult to pray that their self-sacrifice will not be meaningless. As the cult chants Latin phrases and Iterum, a bloody ritual circle and the stabbed victim mark the climax of their dark ceremony.